What is up, party people? Back to the state of the DCEU. Me and Durban here to talk about something that a year plus ago we would have never thought we'd be sitting here talking about. Or if we were, we would probably be in our 50s and we would be talking to each other on little chips or something like that. But the Snyder Cut, Zack,
it exists.
Justice League. It exists. It is here. We have seen it. I've seen it twice. You've seen it 7 times.
Four. 7 is too many.
It's been a while, man. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It has been a while, hasn't it? I mean, well, we did Wonder Woman 84, but that still feels like it's been a while.
It has been a while. What is up, everybody in the chat? Happy Monday. Very good time to talk about some Snyder cuts. So this is our spoiler-filled review. Again, spoiler review. If you have not seen this movie, don't watch this review. Watch our individual spoiler-free reviews. Go check out the movie. Take a couple bathroom breaks. It's a long one. And then come back and check out this review. But if you've seen the movie or if you don't care about spoilers, let's get the show on the road. So we are going to talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League in depth. We're going to break it up into the segments of the movie, so the different chapters. And then we're going to end talking about the impact that this possibly will have. Now, we were going to do this yesterday. Blessing in disguise, Warner Media has issued a public statement. Variety has posted it not too long ago. So we're going to talk about what their actual response or their saying is to this movie and speculate from there. So starting off at the very beginning with the prologue chapter, the main thing that happens in the prologue is that Superman's death activates the mother boxes. We kind of get a little bit of a previously in the Snyderverse, and it's Superman like in slow-mo for like a good 5 minutes. And then it shows that his death sends out these little sound ripples that go across the Gotham City metropolis, all the way to Themyscira, all the way to Atlantis, and activates all 3 of the mother boxes. How did you feel about this as the new opening to this movie?
Well, let's see. I can either take the opening with the fat lip where they ask, did you fight a hippo? Or I could take this incredibly awesome opening that connects it to the past 2 movies and does something pretty incredible. And I'm going to pick this one. I love this opening. I mean, because it felt like it belonged. I mean, whether you liked the Snyder feel or you didn't like the Snyder feel, Justice League sticks out like a sore thumb, the original cut, because it just doesn't fit. When this opens, it fits right from the beginning. You know you're carrying on the same tone, the same storyline, and I thought it was gripping. I mean, to open it that way, and we saw it in the trailer, so we kind of had a suspicion either that was going to be the opening or it was going to be somewhere pretty close. So, like, the scene itself wasn't that much of a surprise, but when it opened that way, those slow motion going all the way around, the kryptonite sticking out of Doomsday, the bones sticking out of Superman, the box is getting hit by the sound waves and turning on, like, it gives you so much context, especially on Themyscira, because in that theatrical cut, you know, there they are just kind of surrounding it like, we don't know why it's activated and all that stuff. It's great to see why it's activated and the explanation that they give later about what happened a year before. It's amazing. So it's all part of giving the mother box's character. So I loved it. I thought it gripped me right away. I knew exactly what I was in for, and I was excited as soon as I saw it.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. It's funny because it's been so many years since 2017 and the original Justice League came out. And so we've had movies, we've had the universe has gone on. So it took me a couple of minutes to kind of get my mind back into 2017 to where Batman v Superman and Wonder Woman were just in recent memory. And so when you start this movie and you see it continue right off of the tail end of BVS with the death of Superman, for me, it gave that whole sequence, the death of Superman and that storyline, a lot more weight. Because one of the biggest criticisms that I still have of BVS is that it felt like that movie was rushing. It felt like it was rushing to get to Batman and Superman fight, and it felt like it was rushing to advertise Justice League. It was rushing to kill off Superman. And to a certain extent, I'm probably always going to feel that way. But the way this movie starts is that it honestly makes that entire death of Superman feel more impactful, because there is that sacrifice. There is the whole, theme of him giving his life for the world that has rejected him and everything like that. And that's powerful on its own. But when you start this and you honestly see what the death of Superman means for life as we know it, I thought it was a really cool visual way, which Zack Snyder's brilliant with his visuals, to show us, not just by saying, oh, he died and then this happened afterwards. It's showing that scream of his as he dies, just going throughout the world and activating these. I thought it was a really cool way to just kick us off and immediately say, this is why this had such a huge impact, and now we're all in some deep crap.
Yeah. Well, I like it because it's also, this is why Superman had to die in the second movie, because like you said, it felt rushed. And I love the Doomsday storyline. It's my favorite. The animated movies did a great job with it. So it's funny because like there's that part of me that still feels like, okay, are you rushing to like get to a Justice League to get to where Marvel's at? But then when you kind of see the weight in the beginning of this movie and what it sets up, and the last time I was watching BVS, I sort of had this revelation because I watched Man of Steel and BVS right before the release of this. So I put myself right back in that frame of mind. And it's kind of interesting because it's like Man of Steel. It's all about Superman figuring out where he belongs, how he fits into this world. And when Zod shows up, he has to choose Earth or Krypton, and he chooses Earth. BVS, Lex Luthor frames Superman and turns the Earth against him. And then he lays his life down for the Earth. And it's kind of like, once he dies, Lois Lane releases that article, right? She releases the article with all the evidence that shows Lex Luthor set this up. Lex Luthor did all of this. So even though his plan still might be a little convoluted, it gives it interesting symbolism. The fact that the world got to see they hated him and they feared him, but he died for them. And then you open this movie with that weight. His death was the bell that rung and brought something dark from space. It's like crap. And so in some ways it works backwards and makes it feel a little bit less rushed.
Yep. So we got 2 super chats really quick. David 2000 saw it last night. Hands down the best DCEU movie since Man of Steel. There is his ranking. I held it up for a little while so everybody could read it.
Nice.
And then we got Nathan Oswald, Restore the Snyderverse. We're going to talk about that movement at the end too. Yes. So then we move quickly out of that prologue into part 1. Part 1 is called Don't Count on It, Batman, in quotations. And immediately starts off with Bruce Wayne in the mountains. And going to recruit Aquaman. He shows up. It's very similar to how we saw it in the 2017 theatrical, with the exception of the "I heard you talk to fish" line.
Yeah.
But he shows up. He's talking about the man that came from sea on the King's Wave or something like that. The King Tide. That was last night, and Aquaman's got the demon eyes going, and I really like this exchange. The only thing that's funny is that it's very stoic and dark. And then as soon as it cuts outside, he's like, "So you really dress up as a bat?" And it's it's a totally different tone. I love that introduction to Arthur Curry because it kind of gives you a tease at what he is as a person, where he's kind of the savior to these people on the shore. Could have done without the whole what felt like a 6-minute sequence of the women singing as he went to the ocean. There's
one big issue with that, and especially that one girl who picks up his sweater and sniffs it, and then sings even louder, right at the camera. If I had to go nitpicking, that's one of those things I'm like, oh, you know what, Snyder, you could have made it 4 hours instead of 4 hours and 2 minutes. By just cutting out that little thing there.
Yeah, and I said in my review, look, I understand for what this release was, for getting to see all of Zack Snyder's ideas, going straight to streaming, there's no reason whatsoever to cut things, and I get that. I do think that there is a 3-hour-ish cut of this movie that would be the perfect version of the film, and so there's going to be some things throughout this review that I'm going to point out of, you could cut that for that perfect cut. That is one of them. Just the song as he's going, and Bruce Wayne just watches, and they keep going and going and going. They sniff the clothes. He walks away while they're still singing. Very music video-ish, I guess. There's a couple of sequences like that in the movie. We get to see Lois trying to move on. She visits the Superman monument, which kind of sets up this thing that she can't really let him go. And they carry that out throughout the movie, where she keeps going to his monument. Well,
give her a purpose for being at the monument for a part we're going to talk about later. And so it is kind of a nice setup because it's realistic. I think the movie's a month after Batman vs Superman, after his death.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah. And so, it's a nice little setup showing her grief and how hard it is for her to let go. And it lays some good groundwork for what we're going to see later.
Yes, absolutely. And then we after that, we get into our first real action sequence of the movie, to where there is some people that looks like they're getting ready to rob a bank. And then you quickly find out that they're not robbing anything except for the people's lives. And they got all these kids lined up. They've got a bomb started. They're there as terrorists. And they have this great shot where they show this monument, and then they kind of like pan across and zoom up around, and they show that Wonder Woman's kind of like watching over the city. And you get this whole sequence where she comes in and foils this group of terrorists. You get to see that the violence is turned up. I mean, she's knocking dudes into walls, and there's little blood splatters.
Oh, she's not just knocking dudes into walls. No.
She's killing every one of them.
She is killing every single last one of them quite brutally. And I'm going, now there's an Amazon. Holy monkey alive.
Yes, even the last guy, when she gets him at the end and he runs out of bullets, I don't believe it. She's like, believe it, and then just vaporizes him, and you just see that hat float. Yes. Which brings me to a point, it shows her interaction with the kids, especially, where she's like, "Can I be like you when I grow up?" And she says, "You can be whatever you want to be." It shows
I love that accent. That's a great accent.
Yeah, where it shows that Wonder Woman really is in this universe the symbol of hope, the symbol of inspiration. Yeah. They carry that through, even in Wonder Woman 84, despite its problems. She's still that kind of symbol. My question
I don't think 84 fits anymore, but go on. Yeah.
I agree. My question is, where's all the outrage with Wonder Woman killing dudes? Because I've heard nothing but bitching about Superman killing people, or Superman fighting a godlike group of people, and people get caught in the crossfire. I've heard about Batman killing people. I haven't heard a single person complain that Wonder Woman broke like 8 dudes in half.
But you know why we're not hearing that? It goes with the when Batman vs. Superman came out. Get this out of Zack Snyder's hands. Zack Snyder shouldn't do this. He's terrible. He's terrible. He's terrible. And then we get Justice League. Where's Zack Snyder's vision? Release the Snyder Cut. We need Snyder. Let's give it all back to Snyder. And I feel like, and it's funny because I've actually fallen victim to this, because I liked in the Nolan trilogy, Batman didn't kill. It was kind of an intriguing thing, even though
it was a major part of the themes of that trilogy.
Yeah. But, it's funny because I did miss that the first 100 views I've done of BVS. Like I missed that. It's like, I don't know how I feel about Batman being strictly a vigilante and killing. And so I went back and forth on it. Then I rewatched Batman Returns on HBO Max, and I was cured when Michael Keaton's Batman is chasing one of those clowns that works for Penguin, and he turns the Batmobile around and burns that guy alive with fire out of the Batmobile. And I went, you know what? I think Ben Affleck was a bit more humane than Michael Keaton's Batman. And I was cured of being angry that Batman killed. And so, it also sets up his character arc, like him falling into the darkness, being redeemed out of it. So I'm less crazy about that. But when I saw Wonder Woman kill, I went, is this going to cause controversy? And it has not. Nobody has cared. That Wonder Woman popped their heads like pimples up against the wall, with children watching saying, I want to be like you when I grow up.
Ethan brings an interesting point here. How Wonder Woman stopped them from blowing up the bank, but then decided to blow it up anyway with her own bracelets. I think her concern was the lives of the children behind her.
Yes.
I get your point.
She only blew up that wall. That wall can be repaired. The children and the people is what she was going for. But it is a point well taken, because all that debris did fly out. And you saw in slow motion that if those cops did not take cover, that would have hurt pretty bad. But you know what I loved about that scene? And I'll make this fast.
Yes.
The change in the musical score. Because I like Danny Elfman, so I'm not going to speak against Danny Elfman. And I even said this in my review. But when you take the Danny Elfman music and throw it in there, it has a goofy kind of tone to it. Especially when Wonder Woman, lassos that guy and says, what are you doing here? Trying to get the truth out of him and interrogating him. It's more goofy. But as soon as you changed that musical score, it took on a whole different feeling. And I like that. I think they did a great job replacing it back with the original score.
I have not watched the theatrical cut since 2017, so my memories of that are slim to none, with the exception of some really goofy lines that I noticed were not in this cut.
Yeah.
But I remember the score, aside from the child inside of me smiling when that little sequence from Batman animated series came on.
Yes.
Aside from that, that score made no impact on me. So I'm pretty sure I would agree with you if I had watched it anytime recently.
Yeah.
Then we move from that action sequence to what I will say is my favorite sequence in the entire movie, and that's when Steppenwolf attacks Themyscira.
Oh, that's a great sequence.
That whole
is such a
sequence,
good sequence.
That was when I first, I was like, okay, I'm pumped now. I don't remember feeling anything like this when I watched the theatrical cut, where he comes down, they have that little tomb, and the queen, like you see the slow motion thing where he's I've come to feast on your fear, and show him your fear. Like, I love that.
No fear.
Yeah, I love that whole line. And then she just grabs the box and hauls ass, and that whole thing about knocking those pillars out to close all of them in, like that's such a warrior thing to do. Like, just sacrifice all of us, but save it. And they just do it with no hesitation. But
how much cooler that the whole thing falls into the ocean. Like, they weren't just knocking down the pillars, seal them in, knock the whole thing in the ocean. We're buried alive with the bad guy. And then he lives, and you're like, all those Amazonians are dead, but this guy got out? You're kidding me.
Effortlessly, he just jumps up like, I'm back. The whole chase scene, though, I just was on the edge of my seat, where they're passing the box, and you got the girl who's like trying to tie up the bow and shoot it through the other person before she gets vaporized. That whole sequence, even the second time that I watched it, I was just ear to ear smiling. I thought it was the most badass
it's
thing in the
weird
movie.
Because there's a lot of parts in that scene that are similar to the theatrical cut, but I think when you replace it with a better Steppenwolf, and like, he was a better Steppenwolf right from the get-go, because I remember the theatrical cut, they were trying to hold him back, and then when Wonder Woman's mom, Queen Hippolyta, when she gets the box and starts running out, he's like, oh, good. Like, he's excited to go on the hunt. But this time he went, no.
Yeah, and he just grabs somebody's head and throws them.
Yes. And so, like, I don't know. It was so much less cheesy. So just by changing, again, the musical score, putting a much better, fully rendered CGI Steppenwolf in there that actually looks intimidating, it just changed it. So even the stuff that was familiar wasn't cheesy. And I haven't watched the 2017 version in a little while either. So I'm sitting there like dissecting the scene. I've watched it 4 times, and I'm dissecting the scene. I'm like, there's a lot of this that looks the same, but I feel 100% different watching it. Like, this is way more, maybe it's the blood. I don't know. It's incredible.
Yeah, the look of Steppenwolf, it's amazing how much a design difference can make, because the original one, I don't even know how much more rendering could have helped that design, because
it was
just
awful.
the humanoid look, I mean, it was just terrible. There was no intimidation factor. The voice didn't even match up. I think even the guy that did the voice acting kind of denounced it. He's like, that is not the character I signed up to be. And then you watch this one. Yeah, you watch this one, and it's terrifying. He's huge, like the way his armor moves and like spikes up when he's pissed, and he's just like he's like a heavy metal cover, and it's just it's a gigantic difference on his effect throughout the movie, because where beforehand you would not get any argument out of me saying that Steppenwolf is the worst villain in the DCEU, and we still have the Enchantress. This one, for being just kind of a glorified errand boy, really, he still makes a big impact.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because also when you watch the theatrical cut, you don't really understand how he fits into it. Like, he says for Darkseid once. So it's like, wait, are you working for Darkseid, or are you doing your own thing? And this movie really gives him a motivation. You see where he falls in the great scheme of things, and it's like, everything about Steppenwolf actually made sense. And I don't know if they re-recorded his voice tracks in the theatrical cut.
It felt like it had more punch. So I think they added some bass to it or something, or some vibrato.
There's something about him having, like you said, more punch. There was like actual passion in the acting and the performance of the voice that I felt like wasn't there in the theatrical cut. It worked.
Yeah. Victor Watson says, I could not get into the original. I remember turning it off, but I decided to watch last night. I'm so impressed. 4 hours flew by. Total badness.
Oh, it did.
Could not agree more.
You know what's funny? And I've been doing this comparison, so, I have to see what you all think about this. But I said in my Wonder Woman 84 review, one of the problems with that movie is it's a little too long and too slow paced to be as long as it was. So Wonder Woman 84 felt like 4 hours to me, and this Justice League movie felt like 2 hours to me.
Yeah, totally agree. It's the same way with his Batman v Superman cut. The 2.5 hour cut we got in the theater just dragged, and it was so taxing. And then you watch the Ultimate Edition, and it just flies by, and it's just like,
how does sense now?
Yeah. We got, have you heard it's official? Snyder Cut ain't getting part 2. I am sad. We're going to discuss that at the end. We're going to discuss all of that at the end.
I'll just say this real quick, though. I don't mind. I don't care. I got what I wanted, and I got the cut that I want. So I'm so excited. If we got a sequel, that'd be a pleasant surprise. But I am so excited that I got to see this version.
Yeah. We come to part 2, titled The Age of Heroes. So Themyscira starts off with sending a signal flare with this arrow. And there's this great line where it's just like, it's been 5,000 years. Men no longer know what this means. She'll know. And I was like, oh, what are they about to do? And it's like this little flame tornado. And I love how she's just nonchalantly working on this sculpture and just hears the news in the background. There's this fire. It's been burning for hours. And she's like, invasion.
Yes.
So I thought that was cool, and I even liked it. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I like how they bookended it at the end with the Wonder Woman sequel that apparently they decided not to do, where she was probably going to go back to Themyscira, where she's holding the arrow. But I thought that was a really cool bit of lore, I guess, for Themyscira about how to send a signal to the land of man.
Well, it's cool because in the theatrical cut, it doesn't make much sense. So they send that thing, and it means invasion. And she even says that, invasion. And then it cuts everything, and she goes to Bruce Wayne, and she goes to this whole Steppenwolf story. So I get it. Okay, so it means invasion right there in the fire, but why does invasion mean Steppenwolf? Why does invasion mean space invasion? Like, how are you connecting the dots? And so what I like about this movie is it was more than just a flaming arrow. Like, that's the signal. But then the arrow has writing on it with instructions. The arrow itself is a key that opens the passageway so that she can see what the invasion actually is. And that whole sequence is amazing.
Yeah, it was cool because it gave her everything she needed to be the exposition dump later to give all of our heroes the knowledge that they needed, but it didn't feel forced. It felt like something that would be natural. There's this tomb. They have all of like the ancient Egyptian style drawings of the Unity and the mother boxes and the parademons and then the big one of Darkseid. So even that kind of tells you the story to where even if they didn't give you the big flashback sequence, you could kind of put the pieces together just by panning across those drawings. So that was really cool. And then we also got Cyborg and his father that are basically made aware that someone is hunting the mother boxes. You get parademons that are looking for it. There's that drawing that they keep seeing that looks like it's misinterpreted as Batman. And they're like, we got to get this box out of here. Like something's coming for this thing. And that's also the first time that we kind of get a hint at the relationship with Cyborg and his father, because he was talking about there's this monster, or he says something in the regards to a monster's coming for this. And Cyborg has a really good line where he's like, you know about monsters, don't you? Especially creating them, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And it gives you enough information about their father-son dynamic, but also where Cyborg is mentally as a character. Because, I mean, admittedly, of these 6 characters, he's got the rawest deal. He's the one that I would not want to be.
No, but, I get that for sure.
But for not having any introduction to this character until this movie, you immediately know, okay, he's pissed about who he is, where he is, his powers, his look. There's something going on here, and he obviously blames his father. So again, in one line, you deliver all the exposition that we need to get off the rails with this character, which I thought was really good. I don't remember if that line was in the theatrical cut or not, but
it was similar, but it wasn't the same. It was just this awkward conversation where it's like Victor is angry that his dad brought him back like the way that he is. And I like this because it really sets up, like, I don't think Cyborg is the heart of this movie, but he's got heart. And so his actual journey of forgiving his father makes his character so much more compelling. But like you said, they didn't have a ton of dialogue here to, do an exposition dump. You got it. And they did a great job where you saw at the football game the mental state he was in when he was in that accident. He already hated his father, and now he's back like this. And so now he's like, why can't you just let me die? You had to bring me back like this, messing with a science you don't even understand. But that's like way down the line. I'm getting way ahead of myself, but still, like, it's like this incredibly good story arc that feels complete now and makes sense now.
Yes. Victor Watson, again, love to see a Zack Wonder Woman movie. Never happened. I love how he uses her in his movie. I'm happy with her and Patty Jenkins, but I do like what he does with her as well.
Yeah.
So then we go from the introduction to Cyborg, and Aquaman is informed of this impending doom and also gives a little bit of a hint of King Orm's motivations to take over the land, which gives us hints towards where the story is going to go in the eventual Aquaman movie, which we're supposed to not have seen yet. And
right.
When we watch
we don't know. We don't know about that movie. No.
Exactly. Yeah. So I like that as well. I think it's funny to see the longer hair on Willem Dafoe. And it's not.
He wears it up in that bun in the movie, so he has no bun this time. He's just letting it all hang out.
Yeah, exactly. And then we get Amber Heard, which, for continuity's sake, I understand. But when I look at her now, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be cool if they go with Khaleesi in the Aquaman sequel. If we get an Aquaman sequel,
I would not hate that. Oh, we have to. It made over $1 billion. Have to.
Yeah, we have to get an Aquaman sequel.
Yes, and then we get our second music video scene with Aquaman, where he leaves to go outside, and he's got to take his slow drink and smash it down and show off the shirtless Momoa body. And
look at my
waves.
tattoos.
Yeah, the waves are coming, and it's just like. These are the times when I see some of the criticisms of the overuse of slow-mo, where I'm like, I wonder if you sped up all the slow-mo scenes, if this would be 3 hours just with that.
It could be. But you know what? It's funny because, like, Zack Snyder, 300. I don't know. I was expecting a lot of slow-mo because that's what he does. And I think it worked because, like, it is kind of funny. Like, if you sit back and look at how much he uses that slow-mo, it is kind of funny. At the same time, he's trying to make these characters epic like the gods. So this is like the gods going to war. So when you take it and put it in slow motion, even him just drinking whiskey before he jumps into the ocean, like even that being epic. Here is this god who probably can't even get drunk, downing his whiskey, ready to dive into the ocean depths.
Yes, absolutely. So we move from that scene, which I would cut, to
Steppenwolf. See, they cut it in the theatrical cut. Like him talking to Willem Dafoe?
No. The slow motion part. That part, the impending doom and the setting up Aquaman, that's great stuff. The music video stuff, we'll take that 2 minutes back. So Steppenwolf then gets the focus again, and he contacts Desaad, and we learn of his debt to Darkseid. We learn that he's not exactly in good graces with the old evil lord, and he has a debt of 50,000 worlds to conquer to get back into his good graces. I don't want to hear anybody ever complain about credit card debt again, because my God,
50,000 worlds.
You look at all of the stuff now. Obviously, Earth apparently is the hardest, realm or world they've ever tried to conquer. But you look at all the stuff he has to do to conquer this world. Okay, now do that 49,999 more times.
I mean, what if there's a Justice League on each world? Holy cow!
Exactly. It's like, you know what? I'm not. Your team sucks. I'm not dealing with you guys anymore. But
you know what was cool about that? So the other thing cool, not just you learn about his debt and he's in bad graces, but you remember how cheeseball it was? I mean, I know it's been a while since you watched a 2017 movie, but he was praying to the mother boxes and they weren't talking back. So it's like he's talking to them almost as if it's cathartic. Like, hi, mother, I heard you call. And dear diary. I don't know. It's just ridiculous. But it's like now you have this communication device and you see him actually communicating with people. The mother boxes give him vision. It's like, it's fascinating. And it just adds so much dynamic to it. It's like, who in their freaking mind decided, hey, let's cut all that and give him a mother complex?
Yeah, I had forgotten about that whole mother thing until somebody shared a little clip of Jeremy John's review where he was making fun of it. And I was like, oh, I forgot they did do that. But what's cool about it, too, is that, like, you see Steppenwolf, and we've already had the Themyscira scene with him. So at this point, we're like, this dude is, like, the baddest dude around. Like, he looks scary. He's terrifying. And then you get this scene, and you find out that, no, he's not. He's a bit of a chump. And it's like, that guy's a chump? What about the people ahead of him? So it's another good way of subtly teasing things that is going to be the bigger impending doom for the overall Justice League story, possible other sequels, stuff like that, without just saying, oh, that's the leader. It's like, oh, you idiot, you're trying to do this. Oh, Master is not going to be happy about this. And it's like, who's Master?
Yes.
So then we get the flashback scene after that of the Amazonians, the Atlanteans, Greek gods, lanterns, all fighting Darkseid the first time that he tried to take Earth. And this one is really cool because not only is it just an awesome scene to look at where you get to see Green Lanterns, you get to see Zeus, you get to see the return of Ares, Atlanteans and Amazonians all working together. You get to see Darkseid actually doing things, smashing the ground, showing the anti-life equation, but it also explains unity. It explains the anti-life equation, and it explains parademons all at the same time about how, like, when he takes over a world, everyone is sucked of life and they just become his slaves.
Yeah. And the world is cleansed with fire. So, like, because it's a Darkseid manipulated thing, it goes into the image Darkseid wants it to be in. All of that's incredibly interesting. And now the mother boxes, what did they say? A living technology or something? So they're alive in some way, shape, or form, and they actually have character. I made my mom watch this 4-hour movie, and she said, I couldn't figure out what those 3 boxes were in that first version. And now they have character, and they're like living things, and I actually understood their purpose so much better. And I think that's true. Like, you can get the idea in the original cut. They'll destroy the world. But this time it really shows you how. It shows you whose will they've been to. And it was just, I don't know. It was just so incredibly smart, you know? And then when one woman said Darkseid leaving after his defeat, they're like dogs without a master, and they went back to sleep. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And he got tore up too, because when Ares struck him with that axe, you just see blood squirting out everywhere. It looks like his shoulders
should have gone for the head.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Well, wait, crap. It didn't work. Yeah.
But no, I love that because you remember, you probably don't remember the theatrical cut. Like, it was just, what's his name? Steppenwolf going mad with the knowledge of his first defeat. It was just that. It was like, it's like, what does that mean? How did you defeat him? We actually got to see a war. We saw Darkseid receive a wound that would be fatal if it wasn't treated. So we actually got to see the defeat and understand what that was. I thought that was pretty slick.
Kind of tails back to 300. It's like, we'll show you that even God can bleed.
Yes. Though Mercenary X84 brings up a good point. He said Darkseid didn't keep the GPS for Earth, which is something that I was kind of confused about, because it's so, did Darkseid forget Earth was the planet the mother boxes fell on? Like, that was probably one little thing I wish they explained a little bit more. How did he lose this planet? How did this become the lost planet when it's the only planet that beat him?
Yeah, I was curious about that myself, so it is a good point to bring up. Part 3, beloved mother, beloved son. And now we get introduced to Barry Allen. So this starts off with my least favorite sequence in the entire movie. This is one that both times that I've watched it, I think that it's a ridiculous sequence. Barry Allen saving Iris West in the middle of his job application. Goes into like this little dog trainer or a pet store. He's trying to get a job. You get the introduction to the very kind of quirky, neurotic personality that Ezra Miller is bringing to the Flash, which even now I'm still not a big fan of. I'm not completely sold on him. I'm still willing to give him a chance on his solo movie because he might end up being great. Not really in love with what he does with the character. So right off the bat, I'm like, I'm not feeling this guy. You get a little glimpse of him looking at a woman that they never say is Iris West, but if you're a fan of the comics, you know who it is.
Yeah.
So we have that, and then there's this ridiculous, cliche, corny sequence where this guy in a big rig is driving and drops his burger and proceeds to go down and just do this while he's reaching for the burger for like a full minute, just full speed down the road, not even a highway, just middle of the city, not looking,
coming up on an intersection. Yeah.
Oh my God. And that was just, it's so corny to me that I'm like, that's something right out of Looney Tunes. That does not belong in this movie. But anyway, he crashes into her car. She's flying through the air, and it's another music video sequence where it's extremely drawn out. It's slow. It's this, song that Zack Snyder's famous for utilizing songs in a very unique way. Sometimes it works for me, sometimes it doesn't. and he goes and he's kind of like marveling at her while stealing a hot dog, and then saves her and lays her down, and then warps back in, and he's giving the dog's hot dog. He's like, "Oh, so I start on Monday." I think him talking to his father is the perfect introduction to the character, because much like with Cyborg and his father, it gives you an idea of who the character is, where this sequence does absolutely nothing except for tease who is going to be Iris West.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel on the sequence, but I hate it.
I feel like a lot of stuff with the Flash, you love or hate, because people were feeling the same way with the theatrical cut. Like, you either like, or you could do that first real quick.
Imagine the impact of Zack Snyder having the heroes losing years before Infinity War had their heroes lose. Interesting thought. Yeah, I don't know. I think no matter what, you're going to have comparisons to Marvel and Justice League. And
how can you not? You have Flash and Quicksilver. You have Hawkeye and Green Arrow. I mean, no matter what, you're always going to have strong similarities between Marvel and DC.
The difference would be, though, is that this is the fourth movie in the universe, and that does not have nearly the impact of what Infinity War had, where you were 10 years in and suddenly half of your heroes are just gone. Now, obviously, I was one of the people that didn't really impact me because I knew they were coming back in the next movie, but I'm on an island. A lot of people really were emotionally, distraught about that, but that's the difference. If everybody lost in this one, it's like, okay, well, we're still learning these characters. So it's not quite the same impact, but I get what you're saying. Go ahead. Thoughts on the
Barry
Flash.
Allen scene. You love him or you hate him, and I like this Barry Allen. I think he's kind of fun. So this sequence didn't really bother me. I do think the setup is kind of cheesy. The stupid driver with the truck. So yes, it is kind of dumb. At the same time, I think it looks so cool, and it's a great introduction to his character, in my opinion. Like, I thought it was cool when he did the slow motion turnaround and his sneakers like explode off his feet. It's like, that's why you need the suit. Because, I'm sitting here going, you're running inside of this extra dimensional layer, the Speed Force. Does that protect your clothes? What does that do? It was cool to see him turn on his feet and it explode. I love the other little details. He runs out to where Iris is and he stops himself, and you see like the pavement bunching up, and it's like, I guess that's really true. The impact of somebody running that fast. So if he touches her, she's going to disintegrate. I feel like no matter what, if you did real physics, no matter how gentle, it looked like he touched her, she'd probably die. But it is a comic book. So I liked showing how gently he kind of just turned her this way and that way, and then kind of laid her down on the street. And then that moment where he forgot and she's staring right at his eyes, and he runs back into the, pet store. So the idea of him doing that job interview to be a dog walker and all that stuff, maybe it's a little cheesy, but I thought the sequence itself was fun and interesting. And I like seeing kind of the effects of his power. Like, yeah, that's what I liked.
Yeah, it is a good introduction to the physics of this version of the Speed Force. I will give you that. Yeah. Everything else I'm going to hold true to. That not a fan.
So really, if it was a better reason for there to be an accident without the cheesy job interview and he just was taken off, you could have been for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Awesome. Let's see here. It shows Steppenwolf interrogating some Atlanteans with this like spider that comes off of his armor, which I thought was really cool. Where he's, they're dragging Atlanteans out of the ocean, which is pretty cool as it is, because the parademons, it makes them look like they're a lot tougher than they actually are. They kind of look like they're just cannon fodder to a certain degree, but these dudes are going underwater and just ripping people out of the ocean.
Yep.
But I thought that was
said the setup, because they drop in a line that King Orm, Aquaman's brother, is sorry, a car alarm went off and now I lost my train of thought. Anyway, King Orm, he's using this as an excuse to build up his attack on the surface world. It's the surface dwellers. They found us. They're snatching us. So that was kind of interesting, where Willem Dafoe's like, no, it's from the dark. They're coming and they're snatching. So I thought, showing these things, dragging Atlanteans, it shows how tough they are. It shows this is a real challenge that is coming. And instead of having what's-his-face Steppenwolf just beam right down to the ocean, just always know where to be, it shows you he actually had to figure out where these mother boxes are. And it was cool to see that interrogation process.
Yeah, because it made it makes his journey as a villain more entertaining to go along with. That there's actually some kind of a struggle that he has to endure versus just him kind of popping up like the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Another Marvel comparison. There you go. I'm going to make people angry.
Well, that's what we do. We're on a DC video comparing to Marvel. The world's
There
ending.
you go.
Oh, no.
There you go. We get a little more exploration of Cyborg origins in this as well, about how the Mother Box kind of created him to a certain extent. And then we get a scene where Barry visits his father in prison. Now, I really like this scene because not only do I love Billy Crudup, Rudderless, that's one of my favorite movies of all time, and he's in that. He's Dr. Manhattan, who is in Watchmen. Yep. So I like the storyline, first of all, because of my experience with the CW show about him and his father's wrongly accused of his mother's murder. And I like that they just give you enough of that to where when they go to the full Flash movie, I expect them to explore it much more.
Yeah.
But I like the exchange between them to where you see Ezra Miller's Flash is very dedicated to becoming some kind of a criminal lawyer to try to get his father out. And he's like, just forget about me. Don't come around again. And I like his response where he's like, don't ever say that to me again. Because you understand as a father, like what he's trying to do, like kind of spare his son the pain and like just
constantly I'm coming in here. Your life is tethered here. Don't be tethered here. Go be free and make a life.
Exactly. I'm done. Go live for me. And he's like, I'm not. I'm going to get you out of here one way or the other. So I really like that introduction. To me, that mirrors Cyborg, like I already said. I think that's actually a really good introduction to his character without the previous sequence.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting. Just when you look at it, you have these characters that have to overcome these bitterness issues because you have Cyborg and his father, and he's got all this bitterness between him and his father. We finally get to continue the storyline where Batman is just full of bitterness and Batman v Superman. Like, you know, feelings of powerlessness that turn good men cruel. That's where he's at. And now Batman's overcoming that in this movie. And now you have something similar with the Flash. It's not really bitterness, but it is this issue where it's like he is tethered to this. So he's got to figure out how to balance his life. So it's very interesting to see our heroes in these very human struggles while looking incredibly godlike when they have their powers on full display.
Yes, exactly. So then we follow that scene immediately to the scene where Bruce Wayne shows up in his little hideout and recruits Barry. Now, this
I've never understood that place. I've never understood that apart. Like, is he living on the street and he just kind of puts?
I don't know. It looks like a low budget Batcave, and I'm like, what are you doing here? With like, I think that's where he's he's portrayed as somebody that's not really a hero yet. Like the one sequence that we get where he's in the liquor store or whatever, it just seems like he just happened to be there. So this scene's kind of contradictory to that. It almost makes it look like he's got, you know, police scanners or something like that and helping out Central City. But this was the first scene in the movie that I was actually surprised with Zack Snyder, because there's a lot of humor in this scene that for some reason, I guess my mind thought everything humorous was something that Joss Whedon inserted. And this won't be the last sequence that I was kind of surprised. All of the humorous scenes from the original theatrical cut that I actually liked, I was shocked to find out that they were Snyder.
Yeah, I was kind of in that same boat. Nate Gates said, no brunch joke. Thank God. I can understand. I'm glad there was no brunch joke, but I am glad like him throwing the Batarang and it going into the Speed Force and him looking at the Batarang. I need friends. Like
what I loved about that is that Bruce Wayne finds out what his powers are while at the same time showing a gigantic leap of faith and trust and showing him who he is. Just by throwing the Batarang, they both know exactly who each other are now. I thought that was a really cool way to do that.
If you just think about the character of Batman, his identity is the most precious thing that he always protects. So you got to think what a huge step of faith that was to just, I'm Batman.
Yeah, absolutely. Complete stranger. Ronin Unleashed. I love this Snyder cut. Darkseid, Steppenwolf, a not so worthless cyborg, Martian Manhunter, dream sequence. It was so much fan service, but not in a bad way. It just felt so earned and well deserved.
It's funny because I don't feel like it's fan service. It feels like fan service because it's what we should have gotten, and that's what the fans are saying. Why wasn't any of that in there? And finally, we got Snyder's version that actually told a complete story.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I love that sequence. I love the whole exchange with the Batarang. I love the fact that it contrasts the Aquaman recruit scene, because Aquaman is so like, nah, dude, you're on your own. Like, you're crazy Bruce Wayne. And then he goes to Barry and he's like, I need word. He's like, stop right there. I'm in. And it's like, oh, that was easy. So that, and I love the line too. Again, I was shocked that it was Snyder where he said, "What's your powers again?" "I'm rich," because that's always been kind of the inside joke with Batman. You know, you talk about him being a superhero, and you get like the super nerds that are like, "He's not a superhero. He doesn't have any powers," and you get that whole thing. And to me, that was like a really cool tongue in cheek way to kind of acknowledge.
He's not a superhero in the same way Iron Man is not a superhero. And what I'm trying to say is they're both superheroes because both of those characters, Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark, are more smart than they have right to be. Yeah. Batman is the world's greatest detective, but his plans have backup plans, and those backup plans have 3 backup plans. And the fact that he, like, the way he designs his suit and just his knowledge, not just his rich, and not just the fact that he mastered every fighting, style known to man and every weapon and stuff. It's like, the beatings that man can take. You got to think, is there anything meta in Batman? Nobody will admit it, but I just wonder that the sheer raw beatings that dude takes, it's like there's something fascinating about this guy.
Exactly. All right, let's see. And then the last sequence, actually, sorry, there's the final 2 sequences of this part 3. So we have Diana meeting Cyborg. She's on the Bat Cave, the Bat computer. She's trying to locate Victor Stone, and then Cyborg basically takes it over and says, "Meet here," and gives her like a little coordinates. And she goes, she meets there. You still see that Cyborg is just a very angry character. He drops the first F-bomb of the movie, I believe. Yeah, and then you see Cyborg's father taken by the parademons. And then we go to a scene where Steppenwolf attacks Atlantis. Now, this was another cool one because underwater action can be very hokey at times, but the fact that he just like boom tubes right in the middle of the water and it's just like Jaws coming for them all of a sudden, I thought was actually pretty cool.
I did too. And it was a better fight sequence. It's funny because sometimes I'm watching this and I'm trying to remember, okay, wait, how did they edit this weirdly together? Because there are shots that are the same between the 2 versions, shots that are completely different, and some shots that I'm pretty sure Joss Whedon totally refilmed. And so it's weird. It's like, how did they put these cuts together? But the fight came out just so much more intense. I mean, blood in the water. He takes that axe and he cuts an Atlantean in half. He goes and swings at another Atlantean and the blood goes flying. And it's like, I don't know. It adds this whole other dimension of brutality and reality to what he's doing. I mean, I know it's a comic book and that's a big alien with horns, but it still adds that element of, oh crap, dude, he's hitting hard. Atlanteans whose bodies are built to withstand the entire freaking ocean and all that water pressure on them, they are bleeding out as this guy just strikes them with an axe. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Now help me remember too, because I don't remember like this thing that they do in Justice League where they have to make like this little air bubble to talk. Yeah. Did they do that in the Aquaman movie? I don't remember them doing that. They just talk, right?
Well, one of the things that drove me nuts about the Aquaman movie is in the very beginning when they introduced learning how to talk and little baby Aquaman is learning how to talk is, oh, wow, I can talk too. Like, it's really stupid and cheesy. But somebody said it in the comments earlier, they didn't like the bubble thing they do in this movie. And I'm pretty sure like they had not settled on how they were going to have these characters talk underwater when they were filming this movie. Because everybody had the ability to displace the water and not just Mira. So to me, that's kind of a continuity error. Not Snyder's fault, but just a continuity error between the 2 movies because they decided, no, they don't need bubbles. They're just going to be able to talk underwater. But also it was interesting because I don't know if you noticed this, but when they didn't do the bubbles and they would make gestures at each other, you'd hear these like dolphin echolocation noises. And I was like, do I like that or do I not like that?
I don't know. See, for me, if I was making the movie, to me, it would be a pain in the ass that every single time I want a line of dialogue, now I have to do a bubble graphic and I have to make sure they're all in the bubble. Like, I totally understand why James Wan was like, no, they just talk. So it's weird to me because, again, when you go back, you have to go back into the mind of I haven't seen Aquaman yet. When I kept seeing that happen, I was like, I don't remember that being a thing. So I'm glad I'm not alone. I'm glad it wasn't just me not remembering things. No, it's actually a continuity
you remember
thing.
It correctly. It's a weird continuity thing. And, it's one of those things that you just watch it and oh, they hadn't figured out how they were going to do this yet. So they picked the bubble option for this movie.
CBMF, speaking of the Batman, after this cut, what would you rather watch first? A Batfleck HBO Max miniseries or Matt Reeves' The Batman?
Oh, man.
Is it too much to ask for both?
Yeah, I would want both. I feel like I'm very curious about the Batfleck Batman. I know I'm going to love the Batman, and I can't wait to see that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely be on a Batfleck HBO miniseries for sure.
I can't decide. I can't decide. If we didn't have the trailer, I would say Batfleck all the way. But that trailer was so incredible where I'm like, I got to see it.
It was so incredibly good.
How dare you make me choose?
Ugh.
Part 4, Change Machine. So, excuse me. The team meets with Commissioner Gordon, which we get a little bit more screen time, a little bit more J.K. Simmons in this. And I love the fact that he's so grizzled and he's so, he's been doing all this, dealing with this crap from Batman for, what did it say, like 8 years or something like that, maybe longer, to where he sees all these superpowered beings and they're talking about the end of the world. And he's just like, I don't care, whatever. Go save the world.
How many of you are there here?
Yeah. Exactly. So I really like that. But they go there and they get info on Steppenwolf's location to set up one of the bigger action sequences in the movie where Batman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, and the Flash all attack Steppenwolf in like this tunnel facility and absolutely get the floor wiped with themselves.
Yeah. But this scene was so much better than the theatrical cut. I did like, I don't know what you thought of this, because I don't know what you thought of Flash being like, I've only just pushed people and run away. I don't do battle, like where he's trying to back out. Lame. I did like Flash. He wants to be a hero. He was ready to fight. He was just kind of like, we don't have a plan. Look at that guy. We don't have a plan. And they took out the cornball jokes. Oh, he is tall.
Yeah, I need to watch the theatrical cut just because you're saying these things, and I'm like, that sounds so stupid that couldn't have been in the movie, but it feels like it should be. Like you're saying these, and I'm like, I probably watched the movie and immediately blacked it out. Like it just left my mind. That had
been what happened. They just stuck with me like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yep, exactly. I was almost going to watch the theatrical cut right before I watched Snyder cut, but I was afraid that I would get fatigued. I was afraid that partway through the Snyder cut, I would be like, dang, I've seen a lot of this. And so I wanted to go in clean. And I think that actually helped my experience.
Yeah. What about when the Flash, and we saw it from everybody else's perspective, all that debris falling, and the Flash went and caught it, and you have that strobe light effect of him running around over their heads, catching, oh my gosh. That whole sequence just made so much more sense and was so epic in this version.
Yeah, it was cool. There was no action sequence in the movie aside from like Themyscira to me that, I don't know, for some reason that Batman warehouse scene in BVS has set this bar for me to where now I'm like every action sequence has to try to beat that. And for me, no action sequence even came close to that bar. So there was something about this scene that I thought was cool in the fact that it just reinforces how Steppenwolf is not to be messed with. Like you have everybody there practically except for Aquaman. And they're nothing. They barely, they're a pebble that just bounced off his armor. And I like the fact that Aquaman shows up at the very end and kind of helps them escape.
Yes. That was kind of cool. Him, like the way he kind of stayed transfixed in that wave. He comes through the hole in the wall and just stays there for a minute. And I love that moment where Wonder Woman and Aquaman, their eyes meet, these two mortal enemies.
Yeah, exactly. You quickly forget that they're enemies in this because they don't really spend a whole lot of time worrying about each other's baggage. They immediately just kind of join up and go after the bigger threat.
Yeah.
So then you have Steppenwolf discovering the anti-life equation with his little mind meld with the mother boxes, and he goes.
Do you remember how that was set up in the theatrical cut?
No, I don't remember anything about the.
So let me refresh your memory on what you don't want refreshed. He's in that tunnel and he throws the bomb at the wall and he goes, "You are all a waste of time. Mother is calling." Because, his mom is calling him home. So he goes back, but nothing. Like the mother boxes don't even talk to him. Mother is not calling him. And it's funny because in this version, he doesn't have the mother is calling line. But it turns out mother was calling. And it was calling to show him the anti-life equation. And I was like, holy crap. Mother actually was calling. Why? If you're going to give me that stupid line, mother is calling, she better darn well be calling because this is ridiculous.
J.K. Simmons, J. Jonah Jameson, or Jim Gordon? Jameson all the way.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a DC over a Marvel any day, but yes,
Oh, for sure. But
yeah,
he
he's
lives
definitely
and
J. Jonah
breathes.
Jameson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he lives and breathes that character. There's a reason why they brought him back again.
Yes.
So,
Nobody else could replace him. So yeah, they had to bring that guy back.
yep, he's a menace. Uh, and so, all right. So, yes. So that was a cool sequence. And we get our introduction to Darkseid as well, to where, he's talking to Desaad, the thing melts away. And then all of a sudden you get that booming score and it's just materializing in a Darkseid. My lord. And his armor goes away. And
all the parademons like bowing as low as they can to the ground. Yes.
Yeah. And I like it too, because he's just like, again, it's almost like a father with like his redheaded stepchild. He's just like, oh, you're going to screw this up. But
now,
if you do this,
brings up. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was it.
Well, this brings up a question though. Because there's a few continuity errors that I have with this, and it goes back to how did Darkseid forget the planet where he lost? How did he forget where it was? Because I feel like the moment he said to Desaad he found the first mother box, shouldn't Darkseid have appeared there? Like, wait, that's the planet with the anti-life equation. Like, I feel like maybe they should have drawn that connection sooner. I mean, unless there's something that I'm missing in the setup of this movie.
I don't know, honestly. I don't know. There's something about that the movie's it's so dense. There's so much stuff going on that I still don't 100% understand how it worked. To me, I couldn't tell if like every world has 3 mother boxes or if there was only 3 period and they were hidden on that Earth or what. I really couldn't figure that out, because to me, I kind of got the impression that any world that they tried to take over, they had to go through this Unity thing with the mother boxes.
Yeah.
And so to me, I was like, okay, so is each of these worlds have 3 of their own that have been placed there and they have to find them? Or was that the 3 that they have to carry to all these different worlds and they've been trying to find them ever since? But yes, I would love if anybody in the comment section could enlighten us on that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get lucky and they're like, oh, you missed this one line of dialogue that makes it all make sense.
And that's probably what happened. Cause like, I just feel like if I had any huge issue with that movie, that's it. I feel like that's the big continuity thing that I'm kind of missing is okay. So the moment he said, I found the first mother box. Oh crap. Okay, you found the mythical planet where he lost, and we have our ultimate weapon on that planet. Like, I feel like they should have made that connection right away, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Mercenary says, how many times do you think Steppenwolf was sent to voicemail before they answered his call? The apocalypse customer that you were trying to reach is out of stuff. Oh, man. Okay. So we have the whole sequence where they try to go up against Steppenwolf. They get absolutely decimated. Now Aquaman is into the fold, kind of reluctantly, but he's here.
Yes.
Steppenwolf knows that the anti-life equation is there. And now Darkseid's involved. And then you get this sequence where the heroes are united and they discuss reviving Superman, where they basically say, look, we're nothing without this guy. We got to figure out, once they figure out that this machine, Mother Box, is capable of what it happened to Cyborg, immediately they're putting the pieces together. Okay, we got to bring this Cape bastard back because we're getting our asses kicked.
I think the best part of that whole sequence and that whole scene is when they're gathered around the table and they drop the line, okay, so anybody with a match can turn a house to smoke. The mother box turns a smoke back into the house. And so it's like, okay, cool. They all get silent. Then you hear doo-doo. Doo-doo. Okay, I'm not going to say it. We're all thinking it as the Man of Steel. And I remember getting chills when that happened. Like, you knew the conversation was going to go in that direction. But that's what I love about the original score coming back, is because now you get moments like that. That was awesome.
I love how they've gotten these characters their own individual scores and they carry out throughout the movies.
Yes.
Like Man of Steel and the Wonder Woman score and everything. I love how they will come in and it's not just exclusive to the solo movies. So then we end this chapter on a big fan service moment where Lois Lane is visited by Martha Kent and is basically having this conversation about you need to move on. You need to re-enter into the world. The world needs you, Lois Lane. And it's revealed that Martian Manhunter is actually posing as Martha Kent. Now, I have little to no knowledge whatsoever about Martian Manhunter, aside from the fact that was Swanwick. I knew enough that, okay, if eventually that guy's going to be revealed, if they carry this Snyderverse on. So when he showed up, I was like, okay, cool. Like, I knew who he was. Beyond that, I don't know anything about Martian Manhunter. So can you enlighten me at all?
He is a fascinating character. So his power set is a lot like Superman with these few extras. He becomes kind of like, okay, I hate to do this Marvel comparison. He's a lot like Vision. He could do that
Okay.
thing where all of a sudden he's transparent and things go through him, and he could go through solid objects. You saw him do the metamorphosis thing, so he could be Martha Kent, he could be General Swanwick, he could change his form to any other thing. But the other thing kind of interesting about him is he can read your thoughts. And even in Smallville, he had the ability to remove people's memories. Like in Smallville, somebody saw Clark Kent's face and he got into their head. Just he raised his hand, shot a little beam out, got into their head, and erased those memories. So Martian Manhunter is a very fascinating character. I think your best representation, though, is the animated movie Man of Tomorrow. Like he is a pretty prominent character in that. So if you want a really good movie where you really get to know Martian Manhunter, I say check out Man of Tomorrow.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, it's, basically what I got from him in this movie is that he's kind of like one of those quiet protectors. He's here, he's watching over Earth, but he doesn't make his presence known. And we get another scene later on in the movie that kind of is breaking through that, where now it's time to reveal myself. But as of this moment, it's kind of like he's just moving chess pieces around.
Because that's kind of they definitely took that out of Smallville. I don't know if Smallville took that from anywhere else, but in the show Smallville, and I hate to blow it for anybody that hasn't seen it, but spoilers ahead. In season 6, what you find is that when Mars was destroyed or life was destroyed on Mars, Jor-El took in the Martian Manhunter. This is just Smallville lore. This isn't DC lore. And so you had Martian Manhunter work. But he was the same thing. He was in the background. So he was to watch over Kal-El, but not interfere, because Kal-El needed to learn to stand on his own 2 feet. But if it ever got too much, then he could step in. But overall, he was supposed to let Kal-El go walk on his own 2 feet. And I feel like that's what they did with this, because I'm still kind of peeved that he didn't show up in Batman vs. Superman. Here you have freaking Doomsday, and he is worse than Zod was, and you don't have Martian Manhunter rushing into the fray. So I wish we got a better reason for why he isn't rushing into the fray as a superhero yet, because he could always cover up his identity and go right back into hiding, because he could be anybody he wants to be. So I figure it's got to be something they ripped off Smallville, where until it's too much, he doesn't really step into the light. So I don't know. Gotcha.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So that is the end of part 4, and then we begin part 5, which is titled All the King's Men. Breaking right into the Kryptonian ship. You have all the team that are there. This is basically the revival of Superman chapter.
Yes.
So you have team breaking into the Kryptonian ship. Aquaman is very hesitant about what's going on. They're basically going to use a mother box to revive Superman in the pool that created Doomsday, in the crashed ship. And so they find out that Flash actually has to create some kind of a charge to get what they need to the mother box. So he has to run past the speed of light. So they set up this whole situation where Superman's in the water. They've got this little Kryptonian ship device that's holding the mother box above. Cyborg's tapped in. He's the captain now. I'm the captain now. And everybody else is basically sitting like, all right, let's see how this works. And Flash is back there ready to do his little thing. And so what I liked about this was that it seems so straightforward, and you get a little bit of that hesitance from Arthur Curry, where he's like, I don't think we should do this. I don't know. And Batman's like, yes, we should. Do it. Do it now. And then Cyborg, I love the fact that he gets this last minute glimpse of the Injustice future.
He gets his own nightmare vision.
Yes, exactly. So he gets just a glimpse of that. And right as it's too late, he's like, wait. And Barry's like, go. Or no, he said no. And he goes, go. Woo. And then he just zooms. And so I like how, again, Snyder, very visual director. I like how it shows the mother box going down, and it just tips the water, and the way that it shows the water being peeled. And then as he breaks the speed of light, it just slowly goes back and just raises up just enough. So very, very cool sequence. And then you come to probably with the Themyscira fight, my favorite part of the whole movie, which again, I was shocked was Snyder. And that's where Superman comes back. He's kind of in Control-Alt-Delete mode, where he doesn't know what he is and has to fight all the rest of the Justice League, and just wipes the floor with all of them. Like the scene, especially where this is the one scene that I took away from the 2017 movie that I liked. And I kind of felt dirty for liking it, because I was like, oh, that's definitely a Joss scene, where everybody is just getting choke slammed by Superman, and the Flash goes around him. And you get that great scene where he's like, and just looks at him, and you were like, oh, and he's running. I actually smiled when I saw that, because I was just like, oh my God, like Snyder again. Like my favorite parts of the damn movie were all Snyder all along.
And I can't tell you how happy I was at that moment with Snyder, because with all the issues I had with that 2017 movie,
I was going to miss it if it wasn't there.
Yes. I mean, my wife was already upset about the no pet cemetery line. And it's funny because she was rewatching it with me one of the times and she threw it in herself. When Superman comes back and he's not quite right, Laura leans over and goes, pet cemetery. See, it's in there. Every time I watch the movie, I'm putting the line in myself. But to have that moment where Superman and Flash lock eyes at that super speed, it's like, yes, we get to keep that moment. But then it leads into that better moment, Cody, which I think you were about to describe, where he sees Batman and he makes that beeline. And then you have Cyborg who gets in the way and he makes short work of Cyborg and tosses him. All the while, the Zod theme music is playing, the do, do, do. And then the Flash running in and just sidesteps the Flash.
Yep.
Bowls over Aquaman. That was a great moment. And then, the typical take out Wonder Woman thing. But like him going through a line of DC heroes to get to Batman was so good. I cannot figure out why even Joss Whedon said, let's cut that. It's like, dude, you have to see that, right? You had to see how great that was. Why are you cutting that? That is beyond epic.
Yeah, I don't know. Like quite famously, that scene was recut to include the revisited line of "Do you bleed?" To which, on paper, Superman repeating that back to Batman is very cool, but it makes absolutely no sense within that sequence because he's supposed to have no memory of who he is, who he was, what happened. He's just confused, and he just knows that because of Cyborg, these people are trying to kill me. They're a threat. So the fact that he would be able to grab Batman and immediately call back to weeks prior in the previous events of BVS, it never quite worked. And so here, just him silently just kind of floating towards him, and Batman's like, no, Clark, no, we need you.
But I love the fact, and it's interesting that he doesn't say one word this entire time. Like he doesn't open his mouth and he doesn't speak until after Lois. And this is something that's interesting because when they get back to the farm, in this cut, he says, whatever line he says to Lois, and she looks at him and goes, you spoke. I didn't before. Like he didn't even realize he wasn't talking. But it's funny because you go back to the theatrical cut, her line is dubbed over and she says, you smell good. And he has the same response. What? I didn't before. And it's like, yeah, I guess you have to do something because he spoke in the theatrical cut. But like the way they handled it in the Snyder cut where he doesn't speak, like you said, he's on Control-Alt-Delete mode. It is truly the blue screen of death for Superman. He can't figure out where he is. His brain is trying to work. It's more powerful that way where he doesn't say a word.
Yes, absolutely. So then in the middle of all of that confusion, you have the mother box that falls outside. You have, was his dad's name Silas? Was it Silas Stone?
I think it's Silas, yeah.
Silas or Cyrus, but Cyborg's dad, Daddy Cyborg, takes the mother box and goes back down into the lab and begins to start some kind of a sequence. And then you get the sequence where Steppenwolf rips through the walls and he's trying to get at the mother box. And his dad starts the sequence while Cyborg is reaching out for him. And it basically looks like he sacrifices himself and you don't really know why. And then quickly they figure out, I don't know if Aquaman or somebody figures that out, but they basically...
Cyborg did.
They deduce that he sacrificed himself to superheat the mother box so that they could basically imprint it, like thermogenically imprint it to where they could find out where Steppenwolf has taken it, like where his base is.
Yeah, which I gotta say, the trailer kind of spoiled that's where Silas Stone was going to die. And it still was a crazy awesome scene because when he died... and Steppenwolf still got the box, I went, no, he died for nothing. And so it hit me hard like that. He died for nothing. And then you find out he superheated it so the thing could be marked so they could find it. I went, oh, good. He didn't die for nothing. So like it did a good job with my emotions. So even though the trailer kind of gave away he was going to die, the scene itself did a good job toying with my emotions.
Yeah, that actor he gets a raw deal because he's also Miles Dyson in T2 and has to sacrifice himself in that one too. So he's almost like he's like the Black Sean Bean. Every time that he's in a movie, he's gotta die. He's gotta die. And if he doesn't die, it's not good. So the theatrical cut, he lived, it wasn't good. Yeah, exactly. He didn't die in Speed. That's the one. It's the only one I've seen him in where he hasn't died.
He was in Speed? How long has it been? Oh yeah, that's right. I remember him now.
Yep.
Wow.
So now we are on to part 6. Part 5 was a kind of a short chapter, but it feels so dense because it has some of the best moments of the movie.
Yeah.
But you get into part 6, and this is the final, before the epilogue, the final chapter. It's titled Something Darker. Yes. So you have Clark that takes Lois to the Kent farm and is reunited with his mother. You get this great scene where he finally is kind of back to himself, and he's looking out on the horizon, and he can sense that Lois is there, and he gets this line where he goes, "I'll take that as a yes." And I love his cadence. Like, people always say that he's not a hopeful Superman, but just the way that he speaks is like this hopeful sense. Like,
I struggle with him not being a hopeful Superman when people say that. I mean, he smiles in Man of Steel when he flies for the first time. You got to imagine the weight of the world that he carries on him. And so what's he thinking when Zod is attacking and you have his ship on one side of the world, you have the world engine on the other? What is going through Superman's head? Like, he can't fail the world. And then you have Batman v Superman, where Lex is getting in his head and Lex is framing him, and he doesn't know he's being framed. And so he's even questioning, am I too powerful? Am I causing these issues when I show up? So it's not that he's not hopeful. He's learning to be Superman.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm with you. So you get that great scene where he gets to have his little touching moment with his fiance, his mother. Everything's back together. Everything's hunky-dory. You go back to the Justice League, and Cyborg kind of troubleshoots and fixes the Flying Fox, which I had to look up what the hell the name of that big helicarrier
I never knew
was.
That until you said that. So the Flying Fox, interesting.
I've never heard the term. I figured there was probably some, like, the Justice Carrier or something. I was trying to Google it, and it came up with the Flying Fox. So if I'm wrong, the website was wrong. But it was,
right. Well, there you go.
Yeah. So
you got something to blame, and DC fans can't get mad at you.
There you go. So he fixes the Flying Fox. Now they have this whole scene where they're all rising up, and they got this badass vehicle, and you get a great line, which is a cool little character arc moment for Batman. Kind of a mirror image to how his mindset was in BVS, where Alfred's like, he'll be here, Alfred. I know it. How do you know this, Master Wayne? Faith, Alfred. Yes. Where in the previous movie is like, we got to kill him if there's 0.01 chance.
And I love it because that happens earlier, because when Batman is talking about bringing Superman back, and Alfred has that great line, don't put the red cape in front of the bull. If you don't have the red cape, and Bruce is like, look, I'm not operating by guilt. For the first time, I'm not even going by logic. It's faith, Alfred. Like, that's that first line where you see he's truly learning to operate by faith. So this is going to be a great theological analysis for me as soon as it all falls together. Yeah. But I thought, like you said, that's a great character arc from Batman. Like, no faith, not trustful, feeling powerless, and it's turning him cruel, to now he's let that go, and now it's faith. And you can see how it's working on him the other way. So it's very cool to see what the theatrical cut did not do. The theatrical cut just rushed to him being funny because it was the mandate. Be more Marvel, be more light, be more funny, put more jokes in. This time he's got a character arc, and you see his hope grow and build, especially when they realize what the Mother Box can do.
Absolutely. So we get the Flying Fox. Now the Justice League is together. They're ready to go kick ass. Clark goes back to the ship and kind of walks through and is reassembling his memories and hearing his father's voices, and gets the black suit. Now, I'm curious if you can enlighten me too, because I know the black suit is integral to the death of Superman and his revival, and that's really what it is. Is there anything really significant about the black suit other than it just looking cool?
The most significant thing in older versions that I've seen is Superman doesn't come back with his powers. His charge is on empty, and the black suit is a recovery suit. And I don't know why it has to be black, but the silver stuff you see in the black suit is about absorbing the sun. It's about absorbing the sun faster and transmitting it faster to his body. So the purpose of the black suit is for him to recover his abilities as fast as possible. The one thing I love the black suit in this. I think it looks awesome. I really do. He looks really good in a black suit. And it's funny because I think he wore the red and blue suit, and they color corrected it to black, which I think is kind of astounding that they could do that.
Yeah.
But I like the way it is originally in the comics. It's a recovery suit. This time he comes back with all of his abilities. So I feel like I wish they explained it. Like, I read a rumor that it was a connection to Jor-El Moore. because, they wore the darker uniforms on Krypton.
Yeah.
Zod had the black thing. So it might be more of a Kryptonian connection of him wearing the black, but they don't really say so.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So he gets his black suit, and then the Justice League, without Clark, goes and storms Steppenwolf's base, which is this little nuclear power plant. They have the whole red aura around it, the force field, where Batman kind of shoots his way through that and gets that away, and then they all storm through. And we get a lot of the same action sequences to a degree that we got in the theatrical cut, but a few more. So you get the good sequences where Batman's driving through with the Batmobile and shooting down parademons, and then Wonder Woman charges through. Yeah, Wonder Woman charges through and takes some of them out in half to get off the Batmobile, and then, like you said, Aquaman's like surfing one down that he just took out. A lot of really good individual moments to where I kind of felt like Batman was useless in the theatrical cut. It's like, okay, gods are doing their thing. You're just going to drive around because you're not really going to be part of this fight. Where I really felt like his purpose as a leader was like, okay, I have to do these certain things so that you guys are able to do your part. And it just made more cohesive sense to me as like as a plan.
And I like Mercenary X84 said no Russian family this time. And what I liked about that is the setup that because that place was so radioactive, and it's not anymore because, Steppenwolf ate it all up to gather power or whatever. So it was all gone by the time they get there. But it meant they could destroy everything without conscience, right? So it's cool that you have Cyborg flying between what would have been an old town, using his laser beams, causing the entire town to collapse on a whole swarm of parademons. So the fact that you didn't have that Russian family or any human there, it kind of made it so they could create destruction, not for destruction's sake, but it's almost like a weapon to help fight against those things and like bury them under some rubble. So I thought it was pretty cool how Zack Snyder utilized that.
Yeah, again, I forgot that there was even a family in the theatrical cut because that makes absolutely no sense. You have a nuclear power plant with a house with people in it. That's stupid.
Yep.
So you have this action sequence, this extended action sequence where they're storming the base, they're taking out the parademons, they're trying to break their way in, and then eventually you get into where unity is happening, Steppenwolf's plan is coming together, and then they all start fighting Steppenwolf. So you get scenes where Wonder Woman and Aquaman are teaming up on him, and eventually the whole plan comes down to, while he's fighting the gods, Cyborg is going to insert himself into the mother boxes, and he needs the same charge that the Flash gave to revive Superman. And so the Flash is just circling around this place, building up more speed than he's ever had in his life. And what I love is that I love the fact that Superman arrives. And even though, again, like these Superman scenes don't quite match up to what I think the scenes in Man of Steel were, but the fact that he shows up on a dime and just not impressed, and then just starts wiping the floor with Steppenwolf, who was pretty much manhandling everybody else. Badass moment for Superman. It was to where
I loved it.
He's flying into him and punching him and throwing him back down, and they're just taking it. And then he burns one of his little horns off, and it's just like, dude, he could just split you in half right now if he wanted to.
There's a line in Superman the Animated Series somewhere where Superman is fighting Darkseid, or he's fighting some supervillain. And he says, all my life, I've lived in a cardboard world, unable to open up. But now I get to open it all up and show you who I really am. And so, like, I feel like that is that moment for me. When he goes to fight Steppenwolf, it's like, wow, I don't have to hold back. And he does not. And it's awesome to see Superman not holding back, beating the ever-living tar out of Steppenwolf. I thought that was hilarious when he sawed off his horn. Well, not hilarious. Epically awesome when he sawed off Steppenwolf's horn with his heat vision. I was like, this is an awesome Superman. I am really digging this.
Yes, exactly. That's when I like my Superman to be a little dark. It's like, oh, you don't need half your face, and it just takes it off. So that's great. And then you get into from what I've pretty much seen across social media, what seems to be people's favorite sequence in the whole movie, or at least one of them. And this is where, it seems like everything's good, everything's won, but then unfortunately Barry gets shot by like this lone parademon,
Yes.
and just barely misses the mark, to where you had a certain second you had to get there. He misses it because he was shot. He didn't get there fast enough. Now Unity has happened. Now the portal's opening up. Now Darkseid's coming, and then the world just starts to decimate. It's just like it's Terminator 2, to go back to that. It's just, the bomb is dropped and everything is getting wasted away. And then you have this sequence where Barry kind of stops time. And what I love about this sequence, like, again, not completely sold on Ezra Miller's version of Flash, but I love this sequence is that the way that he's able to fix this little mistake that he made, or this little slip up that he had, while at the same time coming full circle with all of the things that he was talking to his father about. So he's coming through. He's like, if this doesn't work, I want you to know that I was one of the best of the best. And, I'm here, I'm doing this, and he's running. And then I love when he gets closer and he's like, he's stepping on air, and everything, the visual side of everything is just kind of coming back. And you even see Superman, like blood and tendons and everything coming back together. And, all the way up to the skull of Cyborg. And he makes it there just in time to stop it. And I love the fact that he gets there and Cyborg has this little mental mind meld thing where he has to confront his own demons and realize that he's not alone, he's not broken, and he rips apart like these 3 demons basically that are visual representations of the mother box. And then he calls for Superman, and Superman comes up, and they're like, trying to get it.
You know what's awesome about all of that? It's the Justice League is the hero. It's not like any one of them really shined. They all shined. And
took the words out of my mouth, because that was the next thought I had.
Yeah, it's the true Justice League, because if Superman hadn't shown up when he did, they would have lost. If Barry didn't phase through the shockwave of that explosion, run faster than the speed of light, and turn back time and have his moment, they would have lost. If Batman didn't get this team together, they would have lost. It's like you see the integral role of each one of them, and that's what makes it so incredibly awesome.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Hello. Love you. So, yeah.
Bye.
Huh?
Work was great, honey. Thanks.
I'll see you in a minute. I'm sorry.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yes, exactly. So right before you were saying that was actually right what I was kind of transitioning into, because there's a fine line that they have to walk, to where Superman is such a overpowered character. And it's one of the reasons why as a kid I never really identified with him. I never really got into him until Man of Steel. Part of the reason why I love that movie so much. There's a very fine line with not making Superman seem like the only thing that matters in Justice League, because there's a very easy way to where you can have, Superman can wipe the floor with Steppenwolf. So really he doesn't even need the Justice League. This could be a Superman movie and he's fine. I got the problem, guys. But when you have all these things mixed together, like you said, about Cyborg having to tear apart the mother boxes, Barry having to go back in time, Batman having to get everything there, it makes it to where everybody in the team has a purpose and everybody has their thing to bring, their little specialty, their side of the plan that only they can execute. And if their side falls, it all goes away. Right. So I really like that element too, because like I said, you could very easily make it to where you get to the end of the movie and you're like, does Superman really need these guys? They're just kind of hanging out. Like he could pretty much do all this himself.
Yeah.
And
but Superman couldn't split the boxes. You had to get Cyborg inside the boxes. You could only get Cyborg inside the boxes with a charge from Barry. And Barry missed his moment, so now he's got to turn back time and get his moment back. I thought it was so clever how they showed you the importance of each member, especially in a threat like this.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was a really cool way to end that whole sequence, because it could have just easily been a beat 'em up thing with Steppenwolf and that was the end, but they really put a lot of emotional depth into the defeat, the almost defeat, and then the eventual, like that one extra little step that Flash had to come in and save the day, which, for being a character that we had just introduced to in this movie, it makes him a very powerful character, to where he could easily be the quirky guy that's just kind of there to make jokes, which he was kind of reduced to in 2017. And here he's got a very integral purpose to the team and an integral purpose to the story and to the plan overall.
Now, Rudy said this when I did a live spoiler talk for this. Rudy, check out his channel, Rudy Movie Reviews. But Rudy said, and they replaced that time traveling scene with him pushing a truck. His big moment in the theatrical cut was the Russian family in that truck, and he couldn't figure out which way was east, and then he pushed the truck. That was
Yes.
his big moment. Whereas
A-
this one, he had to turn back time and he saved everybody.
Yes, absolutely. So we get our victory. Everybody's won. Darkseid is stopped. Steppenwolf has stopped. And then you get this really foreboding sequence to where now Desaad is like, as we knew, Steppenwolf has failed. And without the mother boxes, how are we going to do it? And I love how Darkseid's like, we'll use the old ways. And you're like, what are the old ways? I want to know. And it's a great way to not necessarily in a way, I'm very disappointed if we don't get a follow-up to this because it's such a great setup for things to come. But to a certain extent, I like that, that's just enough for me. You could forebode things enough. You could put together the pieces in your head where eventually he's going to get there. You're going to get the whole nightmare storyline to where I thought it was a really cool way to utilize Darkseid just enough to where he doesn't overshadow the actual villain of the movie, but he's here to make his presence known. And then he leaves with that. And you're like, oh, that guy's next.
Yep. No, that was a really great ending with Darkseid. I have nothing to add to that, but yeah, no, it was ominous. It was everything we needed it to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and them cutting off Steppenwolf's head. My gosh, Superman with super punch.
Totally forgot that. That was awesome.
I almost forgot it too. But I mean, come on, Aquaman stabbed from behind with the trident. Superman super punch, and then Wonder Woman the thing, and then choom, cutting off his head. Oh my god!
Yeah, the dark horror fan in me loved that. I almost thought it would have been cooler if just his head went through, but I thought it was just a very cool statement to where it's just like, yeah, that's what we did to your little errand boy. And I love that.
You come here, we'll do that to you. Yeah.
Exactly. Put those pieces back together. So then we get the sequence with them all standing together. They get back in the Flying Fox, and for all intents and purposes, that's the end of the movie. Right. So that's the end of part 6. And now we are into the epilogue, which some of these things feel like they could have been tail ends of the last 5 minutes of a movie where you feel like, all right, I'm about to get out of my seat, like where the music starts to pump and the credits are coming. And then there's a lot of elements to this epilogue that really just feels like a constant collection of post-credit scenes to me.
Yes.
To where, again, we'll get into each individual one. For this release, makes total sense to have everything there because you want to see all of Snyder's ideas, every little idea of where he thought things were going to go, where he wanted things to go, where things could have gone. For the fans, it makes sense. This, on the first watch especially, this is the chapter that felt the most tacked on to me. There's a lot of things here that, like that 3-hour cut of the movie that I'm talking about, most of this epilogue would be gone, with the exception of a couple of scenes.
I feel like if this was on the big screen, a good chunk of those would have been post-credit. Like, we probably would have gotten the epilogue and that montage wrap-up, and then over. Then we get a few credits and Lex Luthor. And then the final thing would have been that future vision. I feel like if this was a genuine theatrical released in 2017, that probably would have been how that stuff went down. But like you said, for what this is, for what we've been waiting for, it does feel tacked on. At the same time, it was really cool, and it worked for me. It was kind of what I wanted. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we get the epilogue. It starts off with Cyborg kind of reassembling this cassette tape, this hand recorder that he had crushed earlier, so that he can hear his dad's voice and also finally hear the message that he left from him about being a father twice over, which is actually kind of the subtitle of the epilogue, A Father Twice Over. So that's a really nice scene that kind of brings him full circle as a character. He forgives his father. He understands, even though there was a lot of resentment there, he understands the gift that his father gave him that he's now able to use. And you see him kind of standing there without the hoodie and the clothes, concealing himself. Now he's kind of standing proud. Yep. So that's a cool sequence. I think that's something that I think would have made it in the final movie, but that wouldn't have been an epilogue. It would have been like pre-credits.
Character arc completing, you know, where he was ashamed of what he was, angry at his father. Now he's let that go, and he can, like Superman, stand proud in front of the human race.
Yes, exactly. So then we get that. We get Aquaman leaving to go begin the events of his movie, where I'm going to go talk to my dad. He gets in the back of this truck, and then he goes off to the James Wan verse.
Yep. So I thought that was a good lead-in. Like, overall, they had good lead-ins to a solo Aquaman movie, which really makes me feel like, aside from the bubbles, how they talked in the bubbles in this one, and they don't do it other than that difference, it feels like story-wise, this is a great build-up to that.
Absolutely. Then you have this one, which I actually had to Google because I had saw somebody had posted something about it. This one would have completely went over my head. So in Miles Dyson's absence, You have a character named Ryan Choi, who is given the authority over all the nanotechnology. And I guess he becomes a character called Adam, which I've never heard of before.
Well, Adam, he's the Ant-Man of the DC universe.
Mhm.
And like Ant-Man, you had Hank Pym, and then Hank Pym gives it to Scott. Ryan Choi is the second one to have that mantle. The first guy to have it, I always forget his name. So somebody in the comments can tell me who that first guy is. But he's played by Brandon Routh in the CW verse. So CW verse.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
First guy who becomes the Atom. And then Ryan Choi is the second guy to become the Atom.
Okay, cool.
Ray Palmer. Thank you, Aaron White.
Yes. Then you have a scene where Bruce and Diana and Alfred go and they find what would presumably be the Hall of Justice, where they're like, oh, 6 chairs right in here with room for more.
I love the added line, God help us.
yeah, exactly. So that was cool. Barry gets a job at a crime lab, goes back to tell his dad. His dad's ecstatic that he gets this garbage entry-level job. And, I love the line where he's like, it's my son. I've taught him nothing that he knows. I thought that was a good line.
That was a great line. That was a great moment.
Yeah, so that was cool. Bruce goes back to the Kent farm and gets the Kent farm back from Martha. Another great line. How'd you get it back from the bank? I bought the bank. So that was a great one. You see Batman like on top of this murder tank. Like, he's standing there and it's just like, what the hell?
I'm trying to figure out, where is that murder tank at? Like, I'm thinking that's where they fought Doomsday at, but I don't know. And I don't know why the murder tank is there. It can't be very convenient to drive that through the streets of Gotham.
No, that thing takes up like, an entire highway. That thing was monstrous. So just a little thing there. Superman pulls open his shirt to reveal, the classic Superman thing, but it's the black one, which I was a little confused by. I thought they would have been blue and red again for that ending sequence, but it almost seems like he likes that suit better, but for the purpose of what I thought the suit was, I thought that was a little strange.
Well, it makes me think if we got a Justice League 2, which it doesn't look like we're going to get, but if we got one, there may have been a better explanation of his connection to that suit. Because I'm betting you he has some sort of connection to the blue suit and a different connection to the black suit, which has not been put into words yet.
Gotcha. So right there, like all of those scenes up to the point of that reveal to me is like the natural end of the movie.
Yeah.
Then we get a lot of the extra scenes. So we get an alternate version of the Lex Luthor scene that we got in 2017. Though 2017, I do remember that scene was kind of setting up the villain Justice League.
Yeah. We're going to start a league of our own.
Yes. Which is called what in the comics?
The Legion of Doom.
Legion of Doom. I believe so.
Legion
yes.
of Doom? Okay.
I think so. That sounds right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, in a nice way.
Yes. Actually. So you get Lex Luthor has escaped from Arkham, which was a cool scene where they're like, come on, Luthor. And it's this bald guy. And then he starts all laughing all maniacally.
And barking at him, which is different than the theatrical cut. They didn't have that part, but yeah.
Yes.
Legion of Doom. Good. I was right.
Yes. So that was a cool sequence. And then you get Deathstroke being led up to this yacht. And in this version, which I understand probably was what Affleck was already having in mind for his movie, this sets up his movie to where he's like, all right, well, Bruce Wayne is Batman. And he's like, oh, well, let's celebrate. Because from what I understand, he was going to be the central villain of Batman, of Affleck's Batman movie, where he was going to be dismantling Bruce Wayne's life. So this was another good lead in to what things were supposed to be back when BVS was out and they were shooting this movie.
HBO Max, if you don't want to do Justice League 2, that's fine. But maybe give us that Batman movie. That would be epic.
Yes, I would love that. So you have that scene, which again I like as a little post-credit scene. That one works really well. And now we have the scene where it seems like this was the scene that everybody was curious and speculating about and most excited for, which was like our Nightmare Part 2 sequence.
Yeah,
I had, and I believe you had probably agreed to, when we did your little pre-game show, I had assumed that this would be somewhere in the middle of the movie.
I did too. I thought that it would be like another nightmare that Batman or Cyborg has some sort of other nightmare in the middle of it where we would get that. And I think what's interesting is this scene both legitimizes the nightmare vision and confuses us more. Because in the first movie, in BVS, he got it because, Flash is like breaking through the time-space continuum. So you could probably make a few connections there. How would Bruce have that premonition? This time you have no such thing. Like, we have this deep, dark, hideous premonition, and then he just wakes up in bed. Nobody traveling through time. And it's like, where did that premonition come from? Did Martian Manhunter with his telepathy beam it into his head? But then how would Martian Manhunter get that ability? And why wouldn't he bring it up when they met face to face? It was...
Yeah, I don't know. See, this was a really cool sequence, but this was the one that felt the most tacked on. This was the one where I was like, this is like a special features thing that they just threw in for that reason alone, because there was really no story sense of why it was there.
And the black and white version that they're going to release of this movie will have even more in that scene. Like there'll be more tacked on to this tacked on scene with the Joker.
Okay, I didn't even know that. So you have Nightmare Part 2, where you basically have Batman, Deathstroke, Mera, Cyborg, and the Flash all kind of going through this Mad Max world. And what I thought was really funny on the second watch is that they get to a point where Deathstroke's like, how much farther? And Batman turns around, we're almost there. And then the Joker is literally 2 feet away. He's just sitting there. And so I think the first time that I watched it, I didn't realize that their destination was Joker. I thought he just popped up. But the fact that they were looking for Joker, like, we're almost there. And it's like, you're there. He's right there. So you get the sequence where Jared Leto's Joker, who I will say looks much better. Yes,
he looks better. And like no damage tattooed across his forehead. So that does kind of break continuity unless the tattoo was never real to begin with. But his personality was so much freakier. Like just demented, twisted.
It's like this psychopath kind of version of Joker, like really like mental patient style Joker, which I don't know. I need again, you don't get enough to really make a decision. It's just like when I saw Suicide Squad, I was like, there's things I like, there's things I don't have enough of a sample size to tell you. And it's the same thing here. It's like a totally different version of Jared Leto's Joker.
Yeah. But honestly, if I had to pick, I picked this one over what we got in Suicide Squad.
I would agree, because it's a little bit more demented, a little bit more creepy. I could have really done without the reach around line. To me, that's like something that Jared Leto probably put in himself. I mean, when you hear these stories that he was sending used condoms to the cast and everything, it's like, oh, okay, we didn't need the reach around line. But I like the fact that he was kind of, pushing Batman's buttons about Robin.
Oh,
and then you get that. Yeah.
Mean. It was mean. Send a boy wonder to do a man's job. Oh,
yeah.
Kill him now, Batman. My God.
Exactly. And it's a good little bottle showcase of that relationship, because Leto's like, you're not going to kill me. You can't kill me. I'm your best friend. And it's just, it's this really sick dichotomy that they have, to where because Batman needs him, or because maybe he has a code, in other iterations, he can't kill the Joker for whatever reason, but the Joker knows this and relishes in it. And he's like, look at all the pain that I brought you and all the pain that's happened in the world. What I love, the best line of this whole sequence is where he says, I wonder how many alternate worlds has gone to hell because you don't have the balls to die yourself.
Oh, man.
And it's like, it's a good question.
And that's a setup for whichever movie it is. Cause I think part of the rumors is Batman lays down his life to stop all of this madness, to save Lois Lane, so that Superman doesn't succumb to the anti-life equation. And it feels like that line is an awesome setup for that.
Yeah. CBMF, is it weird that despite the apocalypse taking place, Cyborg still has a fresh haircut? Maybe his hair doesn't die. I don't know. Maybe the mother box hair.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't grow at all. You never know. That's true.
Exactly. So I liked this sequence. I wasn't in love with it. Part of it just kind of felt unnecessary. Part of it felt like it's teasing something that is 7 movies down the road. I mean, I don't know what Zack Snyder's plans were. I don't know if one of his Justice League sequels were going to be this. I mean, I know everything that's going on in these nightmare sequences as Injustice Gods Among Us, because I've played the game and I've read the book and everything. So to me, that would be like its own movie. But then again, maybe Justice League 2. It sounds like
that was the rumor, that Justice League 2 is this nightmare future, and
which would make more sense.
Figure it out, yes, which would be cool to see.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is the more frustrating sequence, to where of everything that feels like it's wrapped up decent enough in this, you could obviously go through, and I'm going to be sad if I don't get any follow up to this. This was the sequence where I'm like, I don't see this ever continuing. I don't see WB or Warner Media or AT&T doing anything to where we actually get to see this whole nightmare thing come to fruition. Maybe I'm wrong, but that was kind of the feeling I had, was like this confliction where I look at it and I'm like, this is cool, but everything inside of me is telling me that this is going to go nowhere. So it's like watching a pilot to a show that is already canceled.
Yeah. And that's the part that's kind of, I'm happy because it's the whole vision. So whatever it was all supposed to lead to, whatever the original Justice League was supposed to be, we have now got that. And we got the, breadcrumbs laid for what it was supposed to be. So it's funny because if we never get it, that's fine. I could look at that nightmare sequence as a cool special feature scene and then let it end with that epic shot of them all standing together on that silo and be like, well, I guess Superman's heart turned around and that's never going to happen. So, I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, I could be fine getting nothing else, but I'm glad we got the original vision. And if I ever did get JL2, I would be excited, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, and that's probably part of the reason why it felt so tacked on to me, because I feel like there was a place to put this in the movie to where there was all these foreboding things about if we don't stop Steppenwolf, if we let the dark side and the mother box and Unity happen, this is our future. Yeah, and I think there was a good way to put this extra nightmare sequence in the movie somewhere to add even more of a looming threat, and then when they have the victory at the end, that's a nice little closeout of, okay, well, that's never going to happen now.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you. And it's one of those things where it feels like it does lend itself to somewhere else in the movie, especially after Cyborg has the nightmare vision. Like, definitely somewhere after that, you could have had Cyborg explain to Bruce what he saw. Bruce explains to Cyborg what he saw. And then maybe somehow we get another moment where we dive into this sequence. And so, bringing up the urgency of let's get this guy defeated right now. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying. That I think they could have probably melded it into the movie better, but yeah.
The scene where the mother box is dropping and Cyborg says no, and then Flash goes. I think that's the perfect spot for it, because that's right when they're about to bring Superman back, and it's like, oh, did they just screw themselves? Yeah. Nicholas Caldwell, crazy that the Snyder Cut came out on my birthday. Glad the director got to make his movie. I agree, and happy late birthday.
That's awesome. That's a great birthday present.
Yeah, it is. And then we have our final scene of the movie where Martian Manhunter reveals himself to Bruce Wayne. Decent scene.
Yeah.
Decent scene. Again, I don't know enough about Martian Manhunter. I think it's cool. I understand they're basically saying, okay, well, now I'm ready to reveal myself. And obviously I'm going to be number 7 of the Justice League at some point.
Which is funny because that's the original plan, because all the original marketing was unite the 7. And then all of a sudden there's only 6.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's funny to me too, because I love the fact that Bruce Wayne is so tired that he just he sees this Martian floating and he's just like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But you know what? That's how I took it. After battling aliens and stopping the end of the world and nightmare visions, to see a little green guy floating above, he's like, well, here we go again. That's what it felt like to me. So I know some people have complained about Bruce's reaction. In my head, I'm like, can you imagine how tired he is? And how much he's already just seen.
Exactly. And to me, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, because I kind of have this mental block to where it's weird to me. Like I said in my review, it's weird to me to see Bruce Wayne talking to Martians, Superman, Steppenwolf, all these things, even Martian Manhunter at the end. And so everybody else in the Justice League, this whole conflict, this style of movie makes sense to me. Batman, I always have a little bit of a mental block where I'm like, no, you're supposed to be beating up dudes in the street. Yeah, like this whole end of the world thing just feels out of place for Batman. And I know I'm on an island because a lot of people grow up with the comic books, they grow up with the cartoons.
It's back and forth for me because Batman is the human. And he's kind of crazy. And so part of the charm of Batman is he's nuts, but he's a good nuts. And there he is dressed like a bat, beating the tar out of everybody in the street. Like, his story is very, very human. And all of a sudden you throw in metahumans and aliens and Superman.
We got a comment here that brings up an interesting point. I don't know if that was ever the intention, but what do you think if that Martian Manhunter scene was Hal Jordan or was Jon Stewart that came down at the very end? So we got the little introduction of Martian Manhunter in the middle of the film, and then at the end, it's like, I'm a lantern, I'm here to help.
Yeah. Well, the original rumor I heard wasn't Jon Stewart or Hal Jordan. I heard it was Kilowog and Toma Ray. And I was like, that's weird. Why would they come and talk to Bruce? So Jon Stewart or Hal Jordan would make infinitely more sense. I like Green Lantern. I love his mythology. The movie with Ryan Reynolds sucked, but the actual character and his story is really, really interesting. So I would have liked it. I would have thought it would be cool if it was Green Lantern at the end and Martian Manhunter in the middle, like just showing us how big this universe is. That'd be pretty slick.
It was Jon Stewart, and they even filmed it with an actor. Snyder confirmed it. Interesting.
I didn't see that. I'm not denying it. I'm just saying I never saw that. Interesting.
Same here. So very interesting.
I wouldn't be surprised. And I wouldn't be surprised that they changed it to Martian Manhunter again because just get to know that character better. But yeah.
Absolutely. So that is all of Zack Snyder's Justice League. We'll wrap it up before we start talking about the future and talk about some of the statements made by Warner Media today. Give me your quick 2 or 3 sentence, just overall, what your review of Justice League is.
I absolutely loved it. I thought Zack Snyder took 4 hours and utilized every second of it. Because when you have that many heroes that have never been introduced into the live action universe before, I feel like you need that time. But he found a way to take that time and make it important, crucial, high adrenaline, and it just worked. And it was great diving deeper into these characters, and it made everything so much more powerful. Like Flash turning back time, all of that stuff. Every setup that they did was paid off, in my opinion. So, I mean, it does have a few weaknesses, like I said. Like, how did Darkseid lose the Earth? Like, I'm trying to figure that out. Somebody in the comments said that it was Steppenwolf's betrayal, and that's how they lost the Earth. So maybe that's how they forgot. But I'd like still more details than that. I'd like to hear that. But so even though I might have a few nitpicks here and there, because every movie is going to have nitpicks, I thought this movie was done really well.
Gotcha. So basically echoing what I said in my spoiler-free review, and this was before I watched it a second time. Regardless of my gripes or my nitpicks, whatever you want to say, I love the fact that this exists. I love the fact that Zack finally got to make his movie, that we got to see it. We didn't have to wait 20 years for it. It was completely finished, completely funded. And so I love the fact that we have this. And I think that it's a great, little end of that story for him, that he got to redeem this movie that would have died of obscurity, of mediocrity. So I love that. I think that overall the 4-hour cut is very grandiose. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of huge, big, ambitious ideas, which he pretty much always does in all of his movies. And I think most of them come to pretty good fruition. I think Steppenwolf is far and away better. Basically, everything in this cut is better than what I saw in 2017 across the board. But he's one of the big standouts. I think that all of the Justice League gets their individual moments that makes them stand out. Still not really sold on Ezra Miller's Flash. And even though I like his character arc, I'm not really sold on Ray Fisher as Cyborg either. I think that, and again, I don't know if it's his performance as an actor or if it's just the way that they wanted that character to be. He just felt very one note to me throughout the movie. Like he was always just kind of angry and stoic and kind of not necessarily monotone, but a little bit, no pun intended, robotic with the way that he kind of portrays the character. So that was a big issue for me. Hang on one second. So that was something I'm kind of on the fence about. Like I had said in one of my rankings, this is kind of how I feel about it. Like if every one of these characters got a movie tomorrow, the Cyborg movie is the one I'd watch last. So there's that. I really think that overall, the movie does not have any huge inherent issues, but it never really. I kind of use Batman v Superman as my comparison to this because it was the easiest comparison for me to make as far as Zack Snyder. And when I hit my rankings, they were both kind of there, and I'm like, which one do I like more?
Yeah.
For me, this movie, if I'm comparing it to BVS and why I have it ranked where it is, this movie does not have the lows of Batman v Superman, but it doesn't quite reach the highs for me. Where I have the Batman warehouse fight, where I have the Batman versus Superman fight, stuff like that. There's really nothing in the movie that reaches this huge, amazing, oh my God, like that scene is what I want to revisit this movie for. The closest that it gets is the Themyscira. But I just feel like there should have been some sequence in here. Maybe it's just because I'm a Batman fan and Batman doesn't really have a huge standout scene. I feel like there should be some scene in here for me personally to where I look at it and I'm like, man, like that scene, I just wanted to jump out of my seat and cheer. And I just didn't quite get that. I really enjoyed the movie overall. I think that it's far and away better than the theatrical cut. Still not one of my favorites of all time necessarily, but enjoy the hell out of the fact that it exists.
You see, what you said there about Batman makes a lot of sense. Like, you're a Batman guy, so you wanted Batman to have a big moment. He had great highs in BVS. See, I'm the biggest Superman fan around, so I got these ultimate moments with Superman, like especially when he's walking through the ship and hearing the voices of his fathers and flies up to be recharged by the sun, Superman in the black suit, taking the axe to his shoulder. And for me, The Flash is one of those ultimate highs where he's turning back time. Like I've gone back and I've revisited that scene so many times. So that's where it's a little bit different for me because I understand what you're saying, but I did have some of those highs you said you didn't have because some of those moments just really jumped out at me. I will agree, I didn't quite have that with Cyborg. I liked his story arc, but I didn't have a moment like that's a great Cyborg moment. But I had that's a great Superman moment. That's a great Flash moment. I love that Wonder Woman moment. So like a lot of those heroes, I had those moments. But yeah, your logic makes a lot of sense. And Justice League for me kind of worked backwards and justified things like Doomsday showing up as soon as he did. And it
definitely strengthens his other two films.
And so in my ranking, it brought BVS higher on my ranking. So I kind of have this trilogy as my top three with BVS at number 3, Man of Steel at number 2, and then Snyder Cut at number 1.
Gotcha.
Just because I thought it was a good conclusion, aside from the stuff they tack on at the end as set up a sequel, it's a good conclusion to that overall story.
Gotcha. All right. So I guess before we get into kind of we'll speculate on the answers that we might have on the future of all of this. I wanted to discuss a little bit about, because it's something that you and I have talked about numerous times throughout the state of the DCEUs, the fan back and forth. So Batman v Superman comes out, and even during Man of Steel, you have a very loud, I would like to say minority, but it's about down the middle.
It really is.
A loud portion of the fan base of DC that was just not vibing with what Zack Snyder did at all. Didn't like the darker take in Man of Steel and the more grounded take. Really didn't like the darker stuff in Batman v Superman. Thought it was rushed. Didn't like this. And then so for us that I love Man of Steel, really enjoy Batman v Superman, but have a lot of inherent issues with it and understand that those issues are definitely some Snyder ideas that I just didn't like. I always felt like he kind of got the raw end of the deal, and people were their main criticisms of his movies just never made sense to me, especially the dark ones. Too dark. And I'm like, well, it's Batman and Superman fighting to the death. It's not going to be light. So we have this weird transition to where it seemed like the louder half, possibly majority of the fan base really had a distaste for Zack Snyder. And then we started to get these movies like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Birds of Prey that was just kind of abandoning the Snyderverse altogether. Yeah. And since then, the DC's ratings, both fan and critics have gone up almost unanimously since then. And so it's like, all right, we kept talking about, we like this, we like the direction, we like what we're seeing out of the Matt Reeves Batman. We're curious, but we long for all the stuff that we were setting up that was just kind of left there. And then somewhere between about a year and a half ago and today, it's almost seemed like all of that has flipped. And now the louder portion of the fan base is like, give it all back to Snyder, restore the Snyderverse. He's the true vision. He has all the good ideas, and WB is incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. And so it's just this weird, I don't know if it's just a reactionary thing or if it's just going with the flow with whatever's popular, but it just seems very strange to me that there's not very many people that I have seen that have been consistent like you and I, to where we loved it all along and always wanted that. We like the new stuff, but all these issues that you had are still with this movie. Why is this one so much better? Why is now he a genius?
It's so the whole DC tide has been strange to me since Man of Steel. I mean, remember, you remember those videos once a week. Ben Affleck is Batman. Ben Affleck is gone. Ben Affleck is Batman. So you have that issue constantly going on, and then you had, like I feel like for me it changed when they released the theatrical cut of Justice League, because it felt like nobody liked Snyder. The majority, like you said, the majority was against the Snyder vision. Then you get Joss Whedon's Justice League, and you're like, wait, what? And then it felt like it was loud. No, we want the Snyder cut now. And I'm like, well, that's quite a weird flip-flop, because it really did. It really flip-flopped. Like, if you could go back in time before any Justice League came out, it was like you said, the main part was the other way. Zack Snyder's too dark and nobody likes his ideas. And even I was saying, I think BVS is a little bit rushed. And I felt like they were kind of trying to build towards the Justice League faster. Now that I've seen Zack Snyder's Justice League, I'm like, oh, that's what you were planning for. Okay. I think you did a good job with that. You made it different. You handled it a different way than Marvel, which you should. You don't want to cookie cutter it. So I think now looking back, I go, yeah, you did a good job. And I never hated BVS, like you said. Like, the darkness never bothered me because I could always see the hope in Superman. Batman is supposed to be freaking dark. And so it I don't know. It's just hilarious as you like look at it, because it's like nobody can make up their minds. And now the new hashtag is restore the Snyderverse. Again, I'm not against that. I'd love to see the Snyderverse, but you know, the Flash movie bringing us back to Michael Keaton sounds pretty exciting too. So it's kind of like, dang.
I can't help but think that there's a little bit of irony here, that the fan outcry and the fan outrage on the Twitter mob is the entire reason why WB was so reactionary and hacked up BVS and put out this garbage theatrical cut that made the movie not really unwatchable, but just made it a mess.
Well,
and then got
sense.
and then got even more reactionary and scared because of the Twitter mob, and they destroyed Justice League. And that's the same
and Suicide Squad. Don't forget that.
That
movie
too
was re-edited,
what,
7 times after BVS came out? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's ironic that the Twitter mob and the angry reactionary fans caused all of that. And I would dare to say that a lot of the same people are now the same Twitter mob, the same outraged fans that now want WB to listen to Snyder. And I think that there's a really important lesson to learn from that I think we're going to dive into when we start talking about what Warner Media's response to the Snyder Cut release is.
Yeah.
So today, Variety released an article titled Warner Media's Ann Sarnoff on Zack Snyder, Justice League, and DC's Future. Now, you'll notice that a lot of times when you see a big movie drop on streaming, when they want to celebrate or at least put the narrative out there that it was this monster success, they always start with numbers. They always, Zack Snyder's Justice League, biggest VOD release in history, or biggest things since last year. They always put these huge, gigantic headlines out. And you notice that they didn't do that. They just said, we'll discuss it in its future. So I'm curious. It's all weekend. It seemed like this was all anybody was talking about. And I was curious if it was just my little bubble that I'm in, this movie space, and all of my followers and everybody that's on and Facebook was actually a true representation of how successful and how a smash hit this was going to be, or if I was just in the fan bubble and a lot of people outside of my bubble have no interest in this.
That's hard to say because I think I'm in the same bubble you're in. So I'm hearing all the same chatter. Everybody's watching this movie.
Exactly. So Warner Media Studios CEO Ann Sarnoff. So this woman is in charge of Warner Media. WB has famously thus far kind of disavowed from this. They called it a cul-de-sac. WB itself as a movie studio wants nothing to do with the Snyder Cut from what we've seen. Warner Media, the bigger umbrella over WB, was the one that put it into place and said, no, we're making this and it's going to HBO Max. So this is the woman that's over everything. The only thing that's bigger is AT&T that owns Warner Media. So this is not like just some director at WB. This is the woman that has all of the answers. And so there's a series of questions that they asked her. I'm not going to read every one, but the ones that are key. So they asked, why did you decide to release the Zack Snyder's Justice League? And her response was, we wanted to give Zack the opportunity to complete his vision in the 4-hour movie, which is impossible to do in theaters. We're happy that we have HBO Max to let the rope out, as it were, and allow the fans to see all 4 hours of Zack's vision. So makes sense to me. We wanted to have some justice here. We wanted to right the wrongs of the past and give him and the fans what they wanted. What are your plans going forward for DC? We got an incredible group of creators, television series creators, Max series creators, feature film creators who are basically broadening the base of the talent that we work with on DC because we're so excited about the potential to build out the DC multiverse. I'm talking movies, HBO Max, television, and our games division. I'm kind of skipping over some of it, but that's the basic idea of her answer there. Let's see here. So they start talking about the fan base that got the big response that started to get this movement started. And then they ask her all out. There's also been a toxic side to the fandom with reports that critics and some of your executives have received threats for not endorsing the Snyder Cut or for being perceived as standing in the way of its release. What is your reaction to that behavior? And her response is, we're not tolerating any of that. That behavior is reprehensible no matter what franchise you're talking about or what business you're talking about. It's completely unacceptable. I'm very disappointed in the fans that have chosen to go that negative place with regard to DC, with regard to some of our executives. It's disappointing because we want this to be a safe place to be. We want DC to be a fandom that feels safe and inclusive. We want people to be able to speak up for the things they love, but we don't want it to be a culture of canceling things that any small faction isn't happy with. We are not about that. We are about positivity and celebration. To me, that says a lot.
Yeah.
To me, when I read into that, and maybe I'm reading too much into her words, if I was going to translate that, I think that that is her saying, look, the DC of the past, the Warner Media of the past reacted to everything. We bowed down to the mob. We destroyed our universe doing this. Every decision that we made based off of what they wanted destroyed this universe. And now they're yelling at us to do the opposite of what they wanted us to do before. You've got your Snyder cut. We gave you what you wanted. We've got justice for Zack. We got justice for the fans. And now we're done. We're not bowing to the mob anymore. That's kind of what I read it as.
Yeah. And I could definitely pick up on that, which that's good. I hate that it's a mob. I mean, if you had fans who are actually being fans and not poisonous, I think that is valued input because you do want to make stuff fans will enjoy. But I kind of agree because you kind of feel like WB had no firm stance back in the day. You know, when that reaction came out to Man of Steel and they were making BVS, it's like, okay, edit all this stuff out of BVS. And we got a weird version on the big screen and a better version on DVD. But because of the reaction to BVS, they bowed again and screwed up Suicide Squad. And that came out really bad. And so it's like, yeah, I get it. I get what she's saying. You know, you don't want to bow to the mob. You want to hear what fans are saying. But sometimes when you got a cancel culture mob yelling and screaming at the top of their lungs, it's hard to hear what the fans are saying.
Yeah, absolutely. So then they asked, the campaign for hashtag release the Snyder Cut has moved into a new phase. It is now hashtag restore the Snyderverse. What is your reaction to this new campaign? She says, I appreciate that they love Zack's work and we are very thankful for his many contributions to DC. We're so happy that he could bring his cut of the Justice League to life because that wasn't in the plan until about a year ago. With that comes the completion of his trilogy. Of his trilogy.
Yeah.
We're very happy we've done this, but we're very excited about the plans we have for all of the multidimensional DC characters that are being developed right now. So I read that. I think completion of his trilogy, which means Zack is done. Zack is satisfied. Zack has brought most of his story back together full circle. And we love that that happened, but we are focused on the future. We are focused on all the pieces we already have in place for the Flash movie, for the Batman, for Matt Reeves, for all the HBO Max shows, for the Suicide Squad and the shows that are coming out of that. We already have our feet firmly planted in this path, and that is looking backwards. We're glad we righted that wrong as best as we could, but we're going this direction.
Yeah.
Then they straight up ask, and this is where this gets a little crazy for me. Will there be more of these director's cuts? Will we see David Ayer's cut of Suicide Squad? One sentence. We won't be developing David Ayer's cut. Which I'm kind of surprised on, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised on. Maybe it's because they already have the Suicide Squad and they want that to be the focus and they kind of want to act like the other one didn't exist. But
probably.
And this is what makes me think that this the Justice League movie, when all is said and done, as much as we love it, maybe isn't going to be as big of a smash as we thought it was going to be, because whatever Suicide Squad Ayer cut is, it's going to pale in comparison to the numbers of the Justice League Snyder cut. So right. I think they might be looking at the numbers and saying, look, this isn't exactly what we want. This isn't blowing our skirt up. We're not going to dump millions of dollars into something to make even less than this. Because as much as I'd be morbidly curious to see the original version of Suicide Squad, there's no multiverse anywhere where that movie is going to get more excitement, more fan backing, or more numbers than what this could have gotten.
I totally agree. Because, like, I'm with you. I have a vague curiosity to see how is that supposed to go without all the weird edits and all the weird stuff that they did with it. But at the same time, I've never been sold on that movie to begin with. The Suicide Squad, the new one coming out, like the behind the scenes look we got is like, whoa, all right. That looks weird, and I'm kind of interested, and I like James Gunn, and it definitely has his feel to it. That looks really interesting, but So I think, yeah, that's exactly how I feel about Suicide Squad. If I got an Ayer cut, I'd check it out, but I wouldn't rewatch it 4 times, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a whole lot of other questions. A lot of it dives into the Ray Fisher situation, which I don't even want to open up that can of worms.
Yeah,
But that's pretty much all of her answers in regard to their reaction to the Snyder cut, their views for the future. And now, look, I'll say this. I never say never anymore, because
right.
a year plus ago, you and I think definitively looked at each other and said, we're not going to see a Snyder cut anytime soon. It'd be nice. It'd be cool. But if they do, it'll be some unfinished work, or we'll see it 20 years from now. And we got it in a year and a half. And so, and the response that it's been getting. So I'm of the belief that never say never. You never know what's going to happen. But I'm pretty sure they're not going to do anything else. I was pretty sure when I was watching this movie, there was a small amount of hope that if the reaction was just unbelievable and the fans loved it and the critics loved it and it made smash numbers, I kind of had the mindset of, can they really ignore that? And you never know. Maybe AT&T will override all this and say, have you seen these numbers?
But maybe. You never know. You really never know at this point.
You really never know. But from a business standpoint, I understand 100% why they gave us this, but they can't enable the Snyderverse anymore beyond this. Right. And part of it's because of the toxic fan base, but part of it is because they already have all these dominoes ready to fall down in their recovered universe, with the Flash movie, with Matt Reeves's Batman, with whatever plans they have for Wonder Woman, with Aquaman 2, with the Suicide Squad. Even though they could get away with having this separate little bubble universe on HBO Max, I just don't think as a company they're gonna say, okay, yeah, you're right, we're gonna keep doing our thing, but we're also gonna have this other side too, where we have to acknowledge every single movie from here on out that Zack was right and that you fans were right. I just think as a company, they're like, look, you got your Snyder cut, that's all you're getting.
Yeah, and I kind of feel that way too. I think I'd be curious to see what they do with this Flash movie now, because now we know this is about the multiverse, Michael Keaton, Batman, and all kinds of stuff. So who knows? I mean, maybe through that Flash movie, we'll get a nod to this Snyderverse, and that'll just kind of be a way for us fans to like, yeah, that's some nice closure, but then move on. It's like, okay, they're never going to make anything, but I can know that universe exists somewhere, and I have this trilogy. And so who knows what this Flash movie could actually open the doors for. So I was not looking forward to it. I thought the idea of a Flashpoint type deal, a multiverse deal, was going to be a little too soon. Then you throw in things like Michael Keaton. I'm like, yep, give me that. So, I mean, I agree. I'm happy I got what I got. If I ever get a sequel to this, I would be surprised, and I would be incredibly happy to get it, but we'll see.
Yeah. So Violent Delights ask, but does it make sense to ignore the demand? Well, the problem with ignoring the demand is that there's always going to be demand in every which direction. There's going to be demand for the Snyder cut. There's going to be demand for the continuation of the Wonder Woman 84 tone. There's going to be demand for all the movies that they already have slated. They're never going to please everybody.
No.
So I think that what we're looking at is, even before, like, take away the Snyder cut completely, like pretend we never got it. DC's in a really good spot.
Yeah,
they're in a good spot. They really have, aside from, Birds of Prey being kind of not really mediocre reception, but, it wasn't as high as the Wonder Woman movies. And even Wonder Woman 84 kind of split fans a little bit, but even Marvel films split fans a little bit. So like they're on the upswing. They haven't had a Justice League or a Suicide Squad or anything like that in quite a few movies. And everything that they have, that they've previewed on the DC Fandom that we did the live stream about, everything that they've previewed for the future looks incredible. And it looks like they've got a lot of great ideas, both video games, for the Matt Reeves Batman, for the Suicide Squad, for the HBO Max series based off of one of the Suicide Squad characters. There's the idea of the Gotham PD, whatever it was going to be called, HBO Max show.
Which they've got a lot of me at all.
Yeah, same here. They've got a lot of things that's looking up as a company when they have all of their eggs in that basket, and now they're finally winning because they're not making these crazy reactionary decisions. The last thing that they want to do is make crazy reactionary decisions, because now the fans want that stuff back again. And I get it. The selfish part of me would love both. As a company, if I was running it, I probably would make the same move. I'd be like, look, that was a success. We don't know how big of a success till we see the numbers. That amount of demand will eventually go away if we just say definitively no.
Yeah.
Because then you give us Justice League 2, and then it's like, well, give us Justice League 3. Then we give you Justice League 3. Well, now give us a Ben Affleck Batman series. Now we give you that. Well, now go back and show us the Cyborg movie and bring back Ray Fisher, even though you guys hate each other, and it will never end. It will never end.
Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like Sonic the Hedgehog has this balance because they released that trailer and Sonic looked awful. I'm not sure if it got toxic about how awful he looked, but I think fans really kind of let their voices be heard. And the director heard the fans. And so the director made the change to the look of Sonic the Hedgehog for the fans. I don't think he changed the direction of the story or anything like that. He just made that one cosmetic tweak and it made the fans happy. And I think the problem with DC is it's hard to hear the fans because you have all that toxicity. And then, you know, I think that was where Warner Brothers was kind of struggling in the beginning and they were bowing to every whim, which instead of making the fans feel better, it was fueling that toxicity. And so it was this really horrible loop. So we got to figure out how to be less toxic and more fans.
Yes, exactly. See, I'm somebody where, and this is the biggest struggle that I've had, and this ties into that toxicity. I'm a fan of both.
Yes.
I'm not only just a fan of the Snyderverse and the non-Snyderverse, but I'm a fan of DC and of Marvel. And I will never understand the mindset that you have to choose one and that you have to be allegiance to one. And I saw a lot of things this weekend that really was starting to piss me off to where, and it's not even just trolls online. It's like people that I know and people that I've seen and seem like rational people most of the time, where they get so excited about the Justice League where they immediately start comparing it to Endgame, which is a ridiculous comparison. If you're going to compare it to anything, compare it to the 2012 Avengers. But regardless, why do fans always have this immediate gut reaction to where whatever the new thing is, the way that we have to praise this is by jumping all over everything that came before it like it was garbage and we just never acknowledged it before? Like, why, when Justice League comes out and it's a success, why does that automatically make Endgame and Infinity War these garbage popcorn movies? Why can't we just sit down and say, you know what, I love this for this and I love this for this? I love Marvel for how fun and how bombastic and how intricately tied and how planned out the thing is. I love DC for how dark and mythic and a little bit deeper it gets. Why can't we be a fan of both? And that's that. DC and Marvel aside, it's the same way for DC. Why can't you be a fan of what we got for the Snyderverse? Call it what it was. It was a great era. It's done. And now like what we have in front of us, because before you knew that we were getting the Snyder Cut, for the most part, all DC fans loved Wonder Woman. Yeah. They all really liked Aquaman. They all really liked Birds of Prey for the most part. And even Wonder Woman 84 is like 60-40, 70-30, somewhere in there. Where even people that don't love it, it's more so that they just prefer the first one. And, you know, that direction was iffy to them. I don't understand. It's the same thing that happened with Spider-Man, which I'll always go back to. Everybody loved the Raimi films with the exception of the third one. And that has its fans. I'm one of them.
But I'm one of those weird people. I only liked the second Raimi movie. I didn't like the other two.
Yeah, well, the vast majority of people, at least how it seemed, for the superhero movie climate at the time, loved that trilogy. Then you had the Amazing series come out, and the first movie, when it dropped, everybody was like, "Oh, it's so much better than those Raimi movies." And then they have the second one come out, and then they have the you know, everybody drops. Then they have the Marvel Spider-Man comes out, and it's like, oh, it's so much better than those Andrew Garfield movies. And it's like, why does everything new have to make everything else look like shit? And it just, I'll never understand it. Yeah. Fandom as a whole just needs to get their head on straight and realize that you can love multiple things. You can like new things while still enjoying things of the past. You can like one universe and still like the other universe. You can enjoy them for what they both bring. They both have their own pros. They both have their own flaws. Stop all of you.
And, you know, it's funny because it's like, again, if we could have our head on straight, I think studios would love to hear what fans are saying. They would love to hear fan input, but that's not the input that's coming in. And then I think sometimes as fans, we got to have a little bit of a trusting game because those directors are comic book nerds too. There is a very strong reason that they signed on to it, and they're comic book nerds and they got a vision. And so, it's a fine line to walk. And I can't understand that either, Cody. Why? Because this is a better version. Do I have to crap on that version? I mean, I'm not a fan of that Tobey Maguire trilogy, but I was never a fan of it. When it first came out, it's not because I thought Andrew Garfield was so much better. I just only ever liked Spider-Man 2. And I liked Andrew Garfield a little bit better. And right now, this Spider-Man's my favorite. The new one with Tom Holland. Like, it's my favorite. But that doesn't mean I trash all
So
that.
you're the problem. No.
I am the problem. But anyway, the point is, it's like, it's well taken. It's like, come on, this stuff is fiction. Have fun with it. And if you don't like it, say that. But you don't have to be a jerk about it.
Absolutely. Well, we are coming up on 2 hours and 15 minutes. So absolutely. So any final thoughts on the Justice League Snyder Cut or the future? Any other thoughts that you want to get out before we wrap up?
Two things I'm looking forward to in the future: the Batman and the Flash multiverse. And it's mostly because I am so curious, what is the Flash multiverse going to open for us? When he steps through and we get Michael Keaton back, what other surprises will be there for us? What other things could this acknowledge that could exist somewhere over here, but we can have this over here? Like, I'm looking forward to that. And like you said, I think DC, its state is on the upswing. So I like the Snyderverse. Thank you, HBO Max, for giving us the Snyderverse. Thank you, Zach, for giving us your movie. It was great. If we never get another one, that's fine. I'm happy with what we got. And if we get another one, that'll be a pleasant surprise. But I'm not expecting it ever to be that universe continued.
Absolutely. All right. Yeah. So my final thoughts, glad this exists. Love that everybody's loving it. I'm glad it's not this huge toxic argument where the fans love it and everybody that hated Snyder stuff was still screaming that this is even worse or anything like that. That's what I was kind of expecting this to be. And it's good that we can all just kind of enjoy a movie for a weekend and talk about how awesome it is to be a comic book fan. But coming along with that is to remain an awesome comic book fan and not be a toxic jerk. So don't be one of those guys. And in conclusion, keep in mind that despite the fact that this is a great justice story for a director getting his vision over the meddling of a studio, the collaboration between a studio and a director is very important. And very rarely does it turn out to be this way. And oftentimes they both have very good ideas that when collaborated right, give us the best movies out there. So thank you guys for watching. We've had quite a few people hovering around 200 people the entire time watching it.
Nice.
Yes. So thank you guys for watching. We will see you again probably in a couple of months. I think there's a DC thing coming out soon, isn't there? I'm now with the movie dates. Movie dates are shuffling around so much. You will see us again regardless because we have another show that we need to do, right? Something called Pitch Wars. So we have something coming here very soon. Hopefully in the next month, we'll be back for that. So thank you guys for watching. We will see you next time.